Chapter 723. Seeing Qin Haodong enter the door, Hua Mingrui quickly stood up and said anxiously, "My uncle just called and said that my grandfather is critically ill. I want you to see him." I thought it was something serious. It's normal to see a doctor. As long as your grandfather is still alive, I can save him. Qin Haodong was full of confidence in curing diseases. Hua Mingrui still said with a sad face, "But it's not as simple as you think." Qin Haodong said in surprise, "Isn't it just a treatment? What's so complicated about it?" Hua Mingrui sighed and said, "Grandpa has been ill for several months. After the exchange meeting between Huaxia and Neon, I returned to the capital because of this. At that time, I wanted you to come and take a look at my grandfather, but my uncle didn't agree. He was very resistant to traditional Chinese medicine and even said that he hated it. Even if I invited you, I'm afraid that he wouldn't allow you to treat my grandfather. How could this be? Does he want to see your grandfather die with his own eyes?" "No, my uncle is also very filial. In recent years, he has invited famous doctors all over the world to treat Grandpa's illness, but they are all Western doctors." Hua Mingrui asked Qin Haodong to sit down and then said, "There is a reason why he hates traditional Chinese medicine. When he was young, he had a high fever, but he was misdiagnosed by traditional Chinese medicine and almost lost his life. From then on, he no longer trusted traditional Chinese medicine and even hated it. Both he and his family refused to see traditional Chinese medicine when they were sick." Qin Haodong said, "In fact, what he should hate is not traditional Chinese medicine, but that quack. There is nothing wrong with traditional Chinese medicine, but the quack's medical skills are the problem. Quacks are not only common in traditional Chinese medicine, but also in Western medicine. In terms of the number of medical accidents, Western medicine is far more than traditional Chinese medicine. We can't deny traditional Chinese medicine because of this." "You're right. That's true, but my uncle has been traumatized since he was a child. I tried to persuade him several times, but he couldn't change it." Qin Haodong said, "Then I can't help you. Your grandfather is critically ill now. If his family doesn't agree, I can't cure him." Hua Mingrui said, "Grandpa loves me very much. Now Western medicine has no good way to cure his illness. I can't just watch him die, so I want you to come with me to see if you can cure his illness." Qin Haodong said, "You can go to see a doctor, but if you don't solve your uncle's problem, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. I've already thought of a way. You pretend to be my boyfriend and go to visit my grandfather with me. My uncle won't suspect anything. At that time, you can take a look at my grandfather's condition. If you can't cure him, forget it. If you can, I'll think of another way." When Hua Mingrui said this, her white and tender cheeks flushed. She had never had a boyfriend in her life, and it was the first time she had asked someone to pretend to be her boyfriend. The most important thing was that she had an endless good impression of Qin Haodong from the bottom of her heart. Thinking of having this handsome man as her boyfriend, her heart kept pounding. Qin Haodong said, "That's fine. Let's go and have a look." Seeing that he agreed, Hua Mingrui was overjoyed. "Haodong, thank you. Don't mention it. It's not a big deal at all." Qin Haodong asked Hua Mingrui to get in his car and then drove forward according to her instructions. Along the way, Hua Mingrui began to introduce her grandfather's situation. It turned out that her grandfather's name was Mu Bison, who had once followed Taizu to conquer the world. He was one of the few old generals left today and had a very high status in Huaxia. Among his uncles, some were in politics and some were in the army, and they all held important positions. Only her youngest uncle, Mu Haiqin, was in business and had a large business. The Jubao auction house was one of his subordinate businesses. Qin Haodong nodded secretly. No wonder he could open such a large auction house in a place like the capital. It turned out that he had such a deep official background. While they were talking, they had already driven to a nursing home on the outskirts of the capital. The scenery here was beautiful and the air was fresh. It was indeed a good place for recuperation. This nursing home belonged to the military. From the entrance, there was a guard every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. The security was extremely tight. Hua Mingrui showed her pass and then led Qin Haodong into the nursing home. After entering the door, it was still heavily guarded. All kinds of guards in military uniforms and plain clothes were shuttling around. Once they found anything unusual, they would immediately give a thunderous blow. Mu Bison's rank was very high. He did not live with other nursing staff. Instead, he enjoyed a small courtyard alone. The guard at the door knew Hua Mingrui. When he saw her coming, he did not say much and directly let the two of them in. Perhaps in order to make it more realistic, Hua Mingrui took Qin Haodong's arm and pressed her towering chest tightly against his arm. They walked into the ward and saw a thin old man lying on the bed. There were all kinds of tubes in his body and he was breathing oxygen through his nostrils. At this time, he was in a coma. At the head of the bed, a middle-aged man in his 40s was standing there. He had a faint aura of a superior, but at this time, his face was sad. It was obvious that he was worried about the old man's illness. He was Hua Mingrui's uncle, Mu Haiqing, the head of the Mu's group in the capital. He had hundreds of billions of assets in his hands. Next to him stood a young doctor in his 30s. He was wearing a white coat and his hair was meticulously combed. There was a faint arrogant look on his face. He was talking to Mu Haiqing. After seeing Hua Mingrui and Qin Haodong enter the door, the young doctor immediately stopped talking. Mu Haiqing also turned around and saw Hua Mingrui. He said, "Mingrui, you're here." Then he saw Qin Haodong next to her and asked in surprise, "Mingrui, who is this young man?" Hua Mingrui said shyly, "Uncle, this is my boyfriend, Qin Haodong." Hearing this, Mu Haiqing was slightly stunned. His niece had been arrogant since she was a child. She had never talked to any man. He did not expect that she would bring her boyfriend here today. The young doctor next to him changed his expression greatly. He was Li Shuai, a cardiopulmonary expert in this sanatorium. He was a famous doctor who had returned from abroad. Since he saw Hua Mingrui in the ward a month ago, Li Shuai had been shocked and immediately began to pursue her crazily. However, Hua Mingrui rejected him all the time, no matter whether he sent her flowers, invited her to dinner or watched a movie. Even so, he did not give up. He felt that as long as he persisted, he would be able to win Hua Mingrui's heart sooner or later. But today, she came directly with her boyfriend, which made him feel as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. Hearing that it was his niece's boyfriend, Mu Haiqing's attitude immediately became much better. He warmly invited him to sit on the sofa next to him. This was a high-end ward. Not only was it decorated very luxuriously, but it was also equipped with sofas, televisions and other equipment. "Not bad, young man. He's very handsome." Mu Haiqing was very satisfied with Qin Haodong's appearance. He looked very compatible with his niece. Then he asked other parents, "Little Qin, what do you do?" Well, Hua Mingrui had told him before that he must not say that he was a doctor. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "I'm a security guard." In fact, this was not wrong. He was indeed a member of the Daddy Security Company. Security guard? Hearing this answer, Mu Haiqing was stunned. He knew Hua Mingrui's pride very well. How could she have a security guard as her boyfriend? Li Shuai, who was next to him, suddenly looked much more relaxed. Although this guy looked very handsome, he was just a security guard. How could he compare with a top student who graduated from a famous medical university in M country? Hua Mingrui, who was next to him, was afraid that she would reveal something if she said too much. She hurriedly said, "Uncle, Haodong and I are here to visit grandfather." At the mention of his father, Mu Haiqing's expression, which had just relaxed a little, immediately became serious again. "Your grandfather's condition is very bad now. According to Dr. Li's speculation, he can hold on for 3 days at most." Hearing that his specialty was mentioned, Li Shuai would not let go of the opportunity to show off. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, "That's the current situation, but I've already asked my teacher to go to Huaxia from the World Medical Association. He is an expert in cardiology. I believe that he can definitely cure Mr. Mu's disease. And I've already reported Mr. Mu's condition to the hospital. The director said that he had already reported it to Minister Xiao Weiman of the Ministry of Health. Minister Xiao attaches great importance to it. He has already summoned the cardiology experts in the capital. As soon as my teacher arrives, he will immediately carry out an expert consultation with a combination of Chinese and Western medicine. We will definitely find a way to cure Mr. Mu. This guy's saliva was flying everywhere, and he was trying his best to show his role in this consultation. But Hua Mingrui did not care about this at all. What she cared about was whether Qin Haodong could cure her grandfather. Uncle, I'll go and see grandfather. Hua Mingrui did not even look at Li Shuai. She took Qin Haodong and walked to the bed together. Since they had left, there was no need for Li Shuai to continue talking. He could only stop talking awkwardly. Hua Mingrui came to Mu Baison's bed and tentatively looked at the old man. Then she picked up the basin next to her, poured some warm water, and gently wiped the old man's cheeks. Qin Haodong stood next to her. With his medical skills, although he did not feel the pulse, he could clearly see the old man's condition. Seeing that Mu Haiqing did not pay attention to them, Hua Mingrui secretly said in Qin Haodong's ear, "How is it? Is there any hope for my grandfather?" Qin Haodong said, "The source of your grandfather's disease is in the lungs. He should have been injured in the early years. Although he has been treated, the root of the disease has not been completely removed. Later, he caught a cold, which caused his condition to become worse and worse. Now, not only the veins of the lungs are thicker, but there is also fluid accumulation. This is not the most serious problem. The cause of your grandfather's coma is pulmonary fibrosis, which is also the most troublesome thing in the treatment." Hua Mingrui had heard doctors discuss her grandfather's condition many times. What Qin Haodong said just now was no different from the results measured by those sophisticated instruments. She asked with a face full of hope, "Can you cure this disease?" Qin Haodong said confidently, "Although it's a little troublesome, it's not too difficult. If you let me treat it, your grandfather can wake up and get out of bed in 1 session, and he can be completely cured in 3 sessions. Really? That's great." Hua Mingrui was overjoyed. For a long time, the news she had heard was how serious her grandfather's condition was and how difficult it was to treat him. In the end, he could not be cured. Now that she heard the good news from Qin Haodong and they were very close, she couldn't help but kiss Qin Haodong's cheek in excitement. Although Li Shuai had been talking to Mu Haiqing, his attention was always on Hua Mingrui. When he saw that Hua Mingrui had secretly kissed Qin Haodong, his face suddenly became extremely ugly. Hua Mingrui was also very embarrassed for her impulse just now. Her white and tender cheeks were so red that it seemed that blood was about to drip down. In order to avoid embarrassment, she quickly changed the topic and said, "I'll go to persuade my uncle now and ask him to allow you to treat my grandfather." Chapter 724. When Qin Haodong was about to speak, there was the sound of messy footsteps at the door. Then a dozen people came in, led by a middle-aged man in a jacket. He was about 50 years old and looked a little thin, but he was full of energy. He was Xiao Weiman, the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health of Huaxia. Next to him was a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. This man was dressed in a suit and was meticulously dressed. As he walked, he talked to Xiao Weiman in fluent Chinese. This man was Qin Haodong's nominal disciple, James, a cardiopulmonary expert of the World Medical Association. This guy had been practicing Chinese hard and now he spoke much more fluently than before. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't be able to tell that he was a foreigner speaking Huaxia. Behind them were more than a dozen doctors in white coats. They were all the top cardiopulmonary experts of the major hospitals in the capital. After seeing these people, Mu Haiqing and Li Shuai hurriedly greeted them and took them into the ward. Seeing these people, both of them realized that this was not a good opportunity to persuade Mu Haiqing to accept the treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. They silently retreated to a corner of the ward, wanting to see if these experts had any good ideas. James was surrounded by these people and he didn't see Qin Haodong next to him. When Li Shuai saw James, he immediately ran up and said, "Teacher, you're here." When he was studying in M country, he did study with James for a period of time. He was one of his many students. However, James's attitude towards him was relatively cold. He just nodded slightly and didn't say much. It seemed that he was more like an expert invited by the Ministry of Health and had nothing to do with him. After a simple greeting, Xiao Weiman took James to see Old Master Mu's situation and then said to Li Shuai, "Introduce Old Master Mu's situation to these experts." Li Shuai was obviously very excited to make an introduction in front of so many experts. He wanted to find Hua Mingrui and show off his elegance, but he didn't find her after a few glances. Of course, at this time, he didn't allow too much time to waste. He immediately cleared his throat and began to talk. Old Master Mu's main disease is in the lungs. Because he was injured when he was young, he didn't get a thorough treatment in the later stage, and his condition was aggravated by a cold. Now, both lungs have thickened, the left costal diaphragm has become blunt, the left pleura has thickened and adhered, accompanied by fluid accumulation. The left upper lung has old pulmonary tuberculosis, and its activity is limited. The lung lobes are showing signs of atrophy, and the pulmonary fibrosis has intensified. James and the other experts were quite relaxed at first, but as they listened to Li Shuai's introduction, their expressions became more and more serious. When they heard that the lung lobes had atrophied and the pulmonary fibrosis had intensified, all of them frowned. After listening to Li Shuai's introduction, James checked the examination materials in detail. Finally, he put them down with a gloomy face. He raised his head and said to Xiao Weiman, "Minister Xiao, I'm sorry. The patient's condition has deteriorated to a certain extent. There's nothing I can do." After he finished speaking, the other experts also nodded one after another. Although they were all well-known experts, not all diseases could be cured. They were helpless when it came to Old Master Mu's illness. Xiao Weiman had spent a lot of effort to invite James. Originally, he had great hopes for him. Now that James said that there was nothing he could do about Old Master Mu's illness, he immediately said anxiously, "Mr. James, you are an expert in cardiopulmonary medicine. Old Master Mu is a hero of our country. You must think of a way." James spread out his hands helplessly and said, "Minister Xiao, I'm really sorry. Everyone is equal in the face of illness. This kind of lung disease is really too serious. There's nothing I can do." He spoke in Huaxia language, so Mu Haiqin could hear him clearly. When he heard that there was no hope for his father, he said anxiously, "Dr. James, please think about it again. Is there any other way? As long as my father's life can be saved, we can do anything." James originally wanted to refuse, but he hesitated for a moment and said, "In fact, there is still a way. If you can find my teacher, with his magical medical skills, he may be able to save Old Master Mu from the hands of death." In order to perform positively in front of the Mu family and win Hua Mingrui's favor, Li Shuai said first, "Teacher, tell me, where is the Grandmaster? I can invite him." "I'm here." Seeing that these experts couldn't do anything, and the old man's condition was urgent and couldn't be delayed any longer, Qin Haodong no longer hid and directly stood out from the side. After he finished speaking, the people in the room immediately looked in the direction of the voice and saw Qin Haodong and Hua Mingrui in the corner. Mu Haiqin frowned. At this moment, he was in an extremely bad mood. He did not expect that the man his niece found was so unreliable that he dared to joke at this time. Before he could speak, Li Shuai had already rushed over. He pointed at Qin Haodong's nose and shouted, "Boy, how dare you take advantage of me?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "I didn't take advantage of you. He is indeed your grandmaster. Boy, are you looking for a beating?" In front of so many experts, especially when Hua Mingrui was watching, he was continuously teased by Qin Haodong. Li Shuai was completely angry. He waved his fist and was about to rush over. At this moment, a big hand reached out and grabbed his wrist. That's right, this is your grandmaster. After James stopped Li Shuai, he strode to Qin Haodong, bowed deeply and said respectfully, "Hello, teacher. Why are you here?" "Teacher? You? Old man?" If James was not a well-known cardiopulmonary expert of the World Medical Association, others would have laughed out loud. This young man was only about 20 years old, but James, who was in his 40s, was so respectful. What was going on? Xiao Weiman and Mu Haiqing stood next to them and were also confused. They did not know what was going on. Li Shuai stood next to them and he was even more confused. He did not understand what was going on. When he came to his senses, he said to James, "Teacher, did you make a mistake? This guy is not a doctor at all. He is just a security guard." James straightened up and said to him in an extremely stern tone, "What nonsense are you talking about? Although my teacher has a security company, he is the famous medical sage in Jiangnan and the most outstanding doctor. I tell you, you must apologize to the grandmaster, or don't call yourself my student in the future." Li Shuai suddenly felt that he was more wronged than Dou Yi, and more bitter than eating Chinese gold thread. He said he was the security guard, but why did he blame him? He was his rival in love. Why did he become the grandmaster? Qin Haodong did not speak. He looked at Li Shuai with great interest, wondering what his grandson would choose. If Li Shuai chose to bow to him, he would give up his dignity. If he refused James, he would give up his interests. After all, James was a core member of the World Medical Association and an expert in cardiopulmonary medicine. Having such a teacher would bring him great honor and benefits in the medical industry. Li Shuai hesitated for a long time and finally chose to bow his head and whisper to Qin Haodong, "I'm sorry, Grandmaster. I was wrong just now." Qin Haodong shook his head secretly. If Li Shuai insisted on protecting his dignity, it would at least prove that he was sincere to Hua Mingrui and deserved his admiration. Unfortunately, he chose to give up his dignity for interests. Forget it. He waved his hand. He was not even interested in arguing with this kind of person. Li Shuai silently stepped aside, knowing that he would never be able to raise his head in front of Hua Mingrui from now on. Hearing that Qin Haodong was the famous doctor mentioned by James, Mu Haiqing's face flashed with joy. He rebuked Hua Mingrui and said, "You little girl, why didn't you tell me the truth? You are a famous doctor. Why did you lie and say that you are a security guard? Don't you want to treat your grandfather?" Hua Mingrui said hesitantly, "Uncle, I asked Haodong to hide his identity, because he is a Chinese medicine practitioner." "Well, stop talking. Since little Qin's medical skills are so excellent, let him treat the old master now. As long as he can cure the old master's illness, we can do anything." Mu Haiqing said eagerly. Suddenly, he came to his senses and his face changed greatly. "What? A Chinese medicine practitioner?" Hua Mingrui nodded and said, "Yes, Haodong is a Chinese medicine practitioner. Get out. I don't welcome Chinese medicine practitioners here." Mu Haiqing raised his hand and pointed to the door. He was not polite at all. It could be seen how prejudiced he was against Chinese medicine practitioners. "Uncle, what are you doing? I invited Haodong to treat my grandfather." "Stop talking. Chinese medicine practitioners can't cure diseases at all. They are all liars." Mu Haiqing said in a stern voice, "Hurry up and drive him out. I don't welcome Chinese medicine practitioners here." Before Qin Haodong could speak, James was unhappy. He shouted, "Why are you so rude? Why do you have such a big prejudice against Chinese medicine practitioners? Chinese medicine is a very magical medical skill. My teacher is the best doctor. There is no disease that he can't cure." The surrounding experts were stunned by the scene in front of them. A Huaxia man with yellow hair and black eyes was hysterically rejecting traditional Chinese medicine, while a Caucasian man with blonde hair and blue eyes was trying his best to defend traditional Chinese medicine. The scene was really funny. At this time, Xiao Weiman stood up, took 2 steps forward, and said to Qin Haodong, "Young man, are you Qin Haodong, the medical sage in Jiangnan, the head of Tangmen Traditional Chinese Medicine Company who invented the blood revival elixir and the Jiubao kidney nourishing pill?" Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Yes, Minister Xiao. Young man, you're young and promising. You've won glory for our Huaxia people. On behalf of the 4 million leukemia patients, I thank you." Xiao Weiman bowed to Qin Haodong. His bow was not for himself, but for all the leukemia patients in Huaxia. The blood revival elixir had saved countless leukemia patients and countless families at the same time. As the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health, it was impossible for him not to know the details of the blood revival elixir. He knew that Qin Haodong's blood revival elixir did not make any profit at all. It was sold at the cost price. He had a kind of heartfelt admiration for this kind of doctor who sincerely considered for the patients. He had always wanted to go to Jiangnan to meet this legendary medical sage, but he didn't expect to meet him today. Qin Haodong quickly helped Xiao Weiman up and said, "Minister Xiao, you flatter me. I just did what a doctor should do. Young man, you're not arrogant or rash. It's rare and commendable." Xiao Weiman turned to Mu Haiqing and said, "Brother Mu, the medical sage is a gold-lettered signboard. He once cured old Maldini's head tumor without surgery and created medical miracles one after another. The blood revival elixir he developed has saved thousands of leukemia patients. Old Master Mu's life is in danger now. I think you should let little Qin have a try." Everyone thought that since Minister Xiao had made a promise for Qin Haodong, Mu Haiqing would accept it gladly. Unexpectedly, he shook his head firmly again and said, "I don't agree. If you want to urge me to update, please go to Zongheng Chinese. 10 monthly tickets plus 1 update. You can't see other websites." Chapter 725. I don't believe in traditional Chinese medicine. It can only harm my father. It can't cure his illness at all. Mu Haiqing roared loudly. His expression was hysterical. Qin Haodong shook his head secretly. It seemed that Mu Haiqing had been deeply affected by the incident that year. His resistance to traditional Chinese medicine had been deeply rooted in his bones. It would not be easy to change it. Xiao Weiman tried to persuade him, "Mr. Mu, Qin Haodong's medical skills have been verified by the whole world. You should trust him." James said, "Mr. Mu, there's no other way but to choose traditional Chinese medicine and my teacher. I can assure you that Western medicine has no effective treatment for the old master's illness at present." Hua Mingrui said, "Uncle, please believe in Haodong. He will definitely be able to cure Grandpa. Are you going to watch Grandpa die?" The 3 of them tried to persuade him together, but Mu Haiqing was still unmoved. He refused to accept the treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. "We don't have much time." Mu Bison's condition was urgent. Qin Haodong raised his hand to stop the 3 people who still wanted to persuade him. He stepped forward and grabbed Mu Haiqing's arm. Then there was a crisp crack and Mu Haiqing screamed. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that Qin Haodong would hit Mu Haiqing without saying a word. Was he going to use violence to force Mu Haiqing to compromise? But this was the military guest house, which was heavily guarded. Doing so would cause trouble for himself. Seeing Qin Haodong hit Mu Haiqing, Li Shuai, who had been shrinking beside him, immediately became energetic. He jumped out and shouted, "Stop it. You can't touch Mr. Mu." Then he shouted outside the ward, "Guards! Come here quickly. He's hitting me." After he finished speaking, there was a flurry of footsteps outside the door, and then 7 or 8 heavily armed guards rushed over. Hua Mingrui hurriedly shouted, "Haodong, don't mess around. Stop it now." Xiao Weiman shouted, "Little Qin, calm down. Don't be impulsive." Qin Haodong had no intention of stopping at all. He reached out his right hand and grabbed Mu Haiqing's neck. Then he gently pressed down with his thumb and there was another cracking sound. His left hand slid down and pressed on Mu Haiqing's lumbar spine. Crack. Another bone-cracking sound that made one's teeth ache was heard. Then he moved his hands up and pressed on the temples on both sides. Then he withdrew his hands and stood aside. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, incomparably fast. Only after he was done did the guards arrive in position. Li Shuai pointed at Qin Haodong and shouted, "It's him. He hurt people." The head guard's face darkened. Someone dared to fight in the military sanatorium. He immediately pointed at Qin Haodong and shouted, "Come on, arrest him." "Wait." A few guards were about to rush over, but Mu Haiqing raised his hand to stop them. He moved his shoulders, neck, and waist, then looked at Qin Haodong in horror and said, "What did you do to me?" Qin Haodong said lightly, "You don't believe in traditional Chinese medicine, do you? Now I'll show you the magic of traditional Chinese medicine. Your left arm has serious scapulohumeral periarthritis, problems with the fourth cervical vertebra and the fourth lumbar disc herniation. I just helped you deal with it. Do you feel good now?" Mu Haiqing didn't expect that Qin Haodong would use this method to make him believe in traditional Chinese medicine. He wanted to deny it, but his body was honest. His shoulders, neck, and waist were indeed much more comfortable than before. Qin Haodong continued, "In addition, you haven't had a good rest recently because you've been worried about old Master Mu's condition. In addition, you've been suffering from migraine before, so your headache has been getting worse and worse recently. It's a vicious cycle. I just helped you treat it. At the same time, you have serious superficial gastritis and gastric ulcers because of your irregular diet. But it's not convenient to massage this position. You need acupuncture or medicine." Mu Haiqing felt his head again. Recently, he had been really worried about his father's condition and couldn't sleep at night. Therefore, the migraine was getting worse and worse. He often hit his head against the wall because of the pain. Now he felt it. Instead of feeling any pain, he felt very comfortable. Hearing that Qin Haodong was treating Mu Haiqing and it was a complete false alarm, the head guard looked at Li Shuai with disdain and said, "You're a doctor. You can't even see the disease. You're making a fuss. Aren't you making trouble? Retreat." He waved his hand and left the ward with the other guards. Li Shuai looked embarrassed and depressed. He was just a doctor of Western medicine in the department of cardiopulmonary. How could he know that there was such a unique treatment method? After the guards left, the whole room fell into silence. After a while, Mu Haiqing said, "I still don't believe that you can cure my disease by pressing a few times. I think you must have used some trick to deceive me." Qin Haodong said, "It's very simple. We have all kinds of equipment here. You can do a check. If the diseases I just mentioned are not eliminated, then I'll turn around and leave. If the disease has been cured, please believe in my medical skills and Chinese medicine." Hua Mingrui said, "Yes, uncle, you can do a check." Mu Haiqing thought for a moment and finally nodded. He began to do a CT examination of his shoulder, cervical spine and lumbar spine. The equipment here was the most advanced in the world. After a few minutes, the examination results came out. James held the CT film in his hand and shouted excitedly, "My teacher is really amazing. Everything is normal. There are no symptoms of disease." Mu Haiqing didn't believe it. He took the CT film and asked the other experts to look at it one by one. Finally, they gave a unanimous conclusion: the shoulder joint, cervical spine and lumbar spine are very healthy. There is no problem. Hearing this result, Hua Mingrui, Xiao Weiman and James all looked relieved. They thought that Mu Haiqing would definitely accept Qin Haodong's medical skills. But they still underestimated his stubbornness. After knowing that these diseases had been completely cured, he still remained silent and did not say anything. He had done so much, but Mu Haiqing still had the same attitude. Qin Haodong's face immediately darkened. "Mr. Mu, my medical skills are dignified. The reason why I asked to treat Master Meng is that he is a hero of Huaxia and has made great contributions to the people of Huaxia. If you would rather watch your father die for the wrong obsession in your heart, then I have nothing to say. Goodbye. He had done his best. If Mu Haiqing still refused to accept traditional Chinese medicine after saying so much, then he could only let Mu Bison die. After that, he stepped out of the ward. Hua Mingrui shouted anxiously, "Haodong, wait a minute." Qin Haodong did not stop at all and continued to walk out of the ward. Although the two of them were very good friends, he also had to maintain the dignity of traditional Chinese medicine. Since Mu Haiqing did not accept it, there was no need to force him. Hua Mingrui turned around and shouted to Mu Haiqing, "Uncle, the quack doctor failed to cure your disease. It was his medical skills that were not good enough, not the traditional Chinese medicine. Western medicine has never killed a patient, and Western medicine has never misdiagnosed a patient. Grandfather is already on the brink of death. Are you just going to watch him die like this?" Just as Qin Haodong was about to walk out of the ward, Mu Haiqing moved. "Dr. Qin, wait a minute. It's my fault. Please treat my father." In the end, with Qin Haodong's magical medical skills, Mu Haiqing overcame his psychological barriers and chose to let traditional Chinese medicine treat his father. Everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Haodong also stopped, turned around and walked back. Since Mu Haiqing had admitted his mistake, he had to treat him for the sake of Hua Mingrui and Mu Bison. He walked to the bed and said to Xiao Weiman, "Little Qin, do you want to see the results of the examination?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "No need. I just checked old Master Mu's condition and I already know what to do." Another middle-aged doctor in the expert group asked, "Dr. Qin, I want to ask you, how do you want to treat old Master Mu?" "Acupuncture and medicine. I can wake old Master Mu up through acupuncture and restore some of his mobility. But because his condition is serious, he still needs to take traditional Chinese medicine." As Qin Haodong spoke, he took out the needle bag from his pocket. Another old doctor asked, "Dr. Qin, old Master Mu's lungs have already shown signs of fibrosis. Will your acupuncture really work?" Qin Haodong said proudly, "Other people's acupuncture may not work, but mine will definitely work." Fibrosis was the most serious kind of lung disease, even more terrible than stomach cancer. If it were someone else, they would really have no way to treat it. However, Qin Haodong was proficient in the rejuvenating acupuncture method, so he could treat pulmonary fibrosis with acupuncture. Hearing his confident words, the other doctors were doubtful. However, they had no good idea now, so they could only quietly watch the young man perform his medical skills. Qin Haodong came to old Master Mu's bedside and reached out to pull out all kinds of equipment and oxygen from his body. Everyone else was shocked. With old Master Mu's current condition, without the support of these equipment, his life would soon be in danger. As expected, as the oxygen was removed, old Master Mu immediately had difficulty breathing and his face became more and more ugly. Mu Haiqing was shocked, but before he could say anything, Qin Haodong moved as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen silver needles were inserted into the major acupoints on Mu Bison's chest. It was amazing. As these silver needles were inserted, old Master Mu's breathing immediately calmed down and his face became much more relaxed. After seeing this magical effect, Mu Haiqing closed his mouth again, and he had more confidence in Qin Haodong's medical skills. After the silver needles were inserted, Qin Haodong did not stop. His hands kept moving on the end of the needles, and he kept injecting greenwood genuine qi into old Master Mu's body. The greatest feature of the rejuvenating acupuncture method was that it could reorganize human tissues. With the magical effect of greenwood genuine qi on diseases, Mu Bison's condition soon improved greatly. The pulmonary fibrosis was completely removed, and the blocked meridians were completely opened by genuine qi. About 15 minutes later, Qin Haodong raised his hand and withdrew the silver needles. At the same time, he took out a physique-improving pill and put it into old Master Mu's mouth. This physique-improving pill was refined by him and the little fellow yesterday with 5,000-year-old medicinal materials. Both the materials and the refining method had been greatly improved, and the effect of the refined pill was several times better than before. Everyone was watching. Mu Bison's face became more and more ruddy, and his breathing became more and more stable. All the previous symptoms disappeared, and they couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. They were all experts in this field, and just now they were helpless about old Master Mu's condition. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that traditional Chinese medicine could have such a magical effect. Seeing that it was almost time, Qin Haodong reached out and patted Mu Bison's chest. Then old Master Mu slowly opened his eyes. Seeing that his father was really saved, Mu Haiqing immediately rushed to the bed, reached out to grab the old man's hand, and cried excitedly, "Dad, you're awake. Are you okay?" Chapter 726. Go away. What are you shouting for? Mu Bison was a soldier and had a hot temper. He slapped Mu Haiqing's hand away and then sat up on the bed. The experts in the ward all stared with their eyes wide open. This was a patient who was on the verge of death. In less than half an hour, he sat up on the bed by himself. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe it? Li Shuai was shocked and bitter. When he saw Hua Mingrui looking at Qin Haodong with admiration and love in her eyes, he knew that there was no hope for him in the future. Mu Bison raised his head and glanced at the white coats in the room. Then he saw Xiao Weiman and asked, "Minister Xiao, why are you here?" "General, you've been seriously ill these days. I've brought someone here to treat you." Although Xiao Weiman was the deputy minister, he was very respectful to the old man who had fought with Taizu. Mu Bison patted his head and cried, "Look at my memory. How could I forget that I was sick before?" After that, he reached out to hold Mu Haiqing's shoulder and stood up from the bed. Then he said to Xiao Weiman, "Minister Xiao, I really want to thank you. Look at how well I've recovered. I haven't been able to get out of bed for a long time, but now I can get out of bed and walk. My chest is not blocked and I can breathe freely. It's as if I've suddenly become dozens of years younger. I haven't felt so comfortable for a long time." After that, the old man walked slowly. The experts' glasses were all broken. Some even began to pinch themselves secretly to make sure if it was true. In their original idea, even if Qin Haodong could cure the old man, he would have to rest in bed for a period of time. But now it was not the case at all. The old man could actually walk. Xiao Weiman quickly said, "Master, this is not my credit. I don't dare to accept it. It's not us experts who cured you, but someone else." Mu Bison stood there, looked at him in surprise and said, "Who else could it be?" Xiao Weiman pulled Qin Haodong over and said, "Old master, it's him who cured you. He's the medical sage of Huaxia, little Qin. Just now, all of us were helpless about your illness. We even made the final decision. It was little Qin who saved you." Mu Haiqing looked at Qin Haodong awkwardly and then said to the old man, "Dad, Dr. Qin is Mingrue's boyfriend. Mingrue especially invited him to treat you." "The girl's boyfriend?" Mu Bison's eyes lit up after hearing that. He looked Qin Haodong up and down as if he was looking at a rare treasure. "Young man, you're not bad. You're worthy of my granddaughter. I'll make the decision about your marriage. No one can object in the future." Although old Master Mu was over 80 years old, he was not stupid. When he saw Qin Haodong's ordinary clothes, he thought that he was a child of an ordinary family. He felt that there would be great resistance if he was with Hua Mingrui, so he stood up to support him. However, he did not expect that Qin Haodong's boyfriend was fake. In the face of such a misunderstanding, Qin Haodong could not explain it, so he could only smile awkwardly. Hua Mingrui said shyly, "Grandpa, you've just recovered and you're talking nonsense." Mu Bison said, "You little girl, I'm not talking nonsense. You're not young anymore. What's there to be embarrassed about having a boyfriend? I think this young man is really good. You must hold on to him. Don't let him run away." After saying that, he laughed out loud. Mu Haiqing said to Qin Haodong, "Little Qin, it was my fault just now. Now I formally apologize to you. Tell me how to treat your grandfather's illness. Just tell me what you need me to do. Qin Haodong looked embarrassed. This family was really generous. In such a short time, he had an uncle and a grandfather. Mr. Mu's illness is only half cured now. I'll give him acupuncture again and add Chinese medicine to recuperate. Then Qin Haodong took a pen and paper, wrote a prescription and handed it to Mu Haiqing. At present, according to this prescription, take it 3 times a day after meals. I'll come back in a week to give him acupuncture. Hua Mingrui said, Haodong, will my grandfather's body be completely cured after the treatment? Qin Haodong said, of course. With your body, it's not a problem for you to live to 100 years old. If this came out of someone else's mouth, everyone would think that it was flattery, but no one doubted it at all when Qin Haodong said it. After all, his medical skills were really amazing. Mu Bison asked excitedly, boy, can I drink after I'm cured? Of course. Qin Haodong said, but you're an old man after all. You should drink in moderation. Don't drink too much. That's great. I haven't drunk for several years. I'm not willing to die like this. He turned around and said to Mu Haiqing and Hua Mingrui, you all heard it. Little Qin said that I can drink. Don't stop me in the future. Looking at the old man's serious expression, everyone couldn't help laughing. After chatting for a while, the old man lay in bed to rest. Xiao Weiman said to Qin Haodong, Little Qin, my wife's cervical vertebra has been very bad these years, and it's very serious. Many doctors haven't been able to cure it. Can you please come to my house to see her? Qin Haodong never refused to see a doctor. He simply said, of course. As the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health, Xiao Weiman could be said to be in charge of all the famous doctors in Huaxia. He had also taken his wife to see many doctors, but there was no effect. Originally, he had already given up hope, but after seeing Qin Haodong's medical skills today, he immediately had hope again. Mu Bison lay in bed to rest, and Hua Mingrui stayed to take care of him. The other experts left the sanatorium one after another. Xiao Weiman rushed to his home with Qin Haodong. According to his rank, Xiao Weiman had a special car, but he didn't take his own car. Instead, he got in Qin Haodong's car. Qin Haodong started the car and asked while driving, Minister Xiao, is Auntie's cervical vertebra very serious? It's indeed very serious. Xiao Weiman sighed and said, her cervical vertebra canal is congenital stenosis, and the nerves in the spinal canal are twisted and deformed. There's no way to operate at all. Over the years, I have taken her to see many famous doctors, but there was no effect. On the contrary, as she grew older, her condition became more and more serious. Due to insufficient blood supply, she is very dizzy. Recently, she has fallen several times. Fortunately, she is not seriously injured, but I don't dare to let her go to work. She has been recuperating at home. Oh. Qin Haodong nodded. This was also what he had expected. If it were an ordinary disease, it would have been cured long ago with the medical level of the capital. Speaking of this, Xiao Weiman asked, Little Dr. Qin, can your aunt's disease be cured? Now Qin Haodong was his last hope. If even this doctor couldn't cure his wife's disease, he would really be desperate. Qin Haodong smiled and said, no problem, I can cure it. In terms of the condition, Xiao Weiman's wife's disease was a difficult and complicated disease, which had exceeded the current medical level. However, his medical skills were also far beyond the current medical level. Others couldn't do anything about the congenital narrowing of the spinal canal, but he could slowly widen it with the greenwood genuine qi. As for the nerve knot in the spine, he could open the knot with the Bodhi's hand. Xiao Weiman's home was not too far from the military sanatorium. Soon, they arrived downstairs. After parking the car, they walked upstairs together. Opening the door, they saw that it was a house of about 80 square meters. The decoration was also ordinary. This kind of house was good for ordinary families, but it was a little shabby for a deputy ministerial cadre like Xiao Weiman. Qin Haodong nodded secretly. It seemed that Minister Xiao was indeed a good official. Shuyuan, I'm back. Xiao Weiman's wife's name was Liao Shuyuan. He greeted her and took Qin Haodong to the living room. After entering the door, he saw that there was someone at home. Liao Shuyuan was sitting on the sofa in the living room. Opposite her was a white-haired old man in his 70s, who was feeling her pulse. Next to him stood a middle-aged man in his 50s. He was Yang Haizheng, the director of the Sanitary Bureau of the capital. Qin Haodong was slightly stunned when he saw the old man. He didn't expect to meet an old acquaintance at Minister Xiao's home. The old man was Su Hongba, a professor of traditional Chinese medicine at the Shanghai Medical College. It turned out that Yang Haizheng knew that Liao Shuyuan's condition had worsened, so he invited Su Hongba to treat her. Seeing Xiao Weiman enter the door, Liao Shuyuan said, "Old Xiao, you're back. Director Yang invited Dr. Su to treat me." She just nodded to Qin Haodong, who was behind Xiao Weiman. She thought that this young man was the new driver of the department. Xiao Weiman nodded to Yang Haizheng and said, "Director Yang, sorry to trouble you with my wife's illness." Yang Haizheng quickly said, "It's no trouble at all. It just so happens that Master Su is in the capital these days, so I invited him to treat sister-in-law." He was very satisfied with what had happened today. Xiao Weiman was his immediate superior. He invited Su Hongba here today to please him. It was perfect that Xiao Weiman met him. If Su Hongba could cure Liao Shuyuan's illness, it would be perfect. Su Hongba withdrew his hand, stood up and greeted Xiao Weiman. Suddenly, he saw Qin Haodong next to him and said in surprise, "Little Qin, I didn't expect to meet you here. It seems that Ms. Liao's illness can be cured." "Hello, Master Su." Qin Haodong greeted him politely. Yang Haizheng asked in surprise, "Master Su, who is this little brother?" "He is the developer of the blood revival elixir, the famous medical sage Qin Haodong. Although little Qin is young, his medical skills are hundreds of times better than mine." Su Hongba said excitedly, "To be honest, I can't do anything about Ms. Liao's illness. I can only relieve the symptoms of dizziness and headache with some traditional Chinese medicine, but I can't get rid of the root cause of the disease. But it's different with little Qin. He must have a way." After hearing his words, Yang Haizheng and Liao Shuyuan were slightly stunned. One of them was the director of the Sanitary Bureau, and the other was the wife of the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Health. They had long heard of the famous medical sage, but they didn't expect him to be so young. Xiao Weiman said, "Little Qin just cured old Master Mu's illness. I happened to meet him, so I invited him home." "What? Old Master Mu's illness has been cured?" As the director of the Sanitary Bureau of the capital, he had also visited old Master Mu before. He knew how serious old Master Mu's illness was, so he was surprised to hear that Qin Haodong had cured Mu Bison. Xiao Weiman said with a smile, "Little Qin's medical skills are really amazing. Old Master Mu can walk now. Dr. Qin, you are really young and promising." Yang Haizheng quickly reached out his hands and shook hands with Qin Haodong enthusiastically. Although he was the director of the Sanitary Bureau, he was the medical sage of Huaxia, a really capable person. Qin Haodong shook hands with him and then said to Su Hongba, "Master Su, how is Auntie Liao's illness?" Su Hongba briefly told him the result of his pulse feeling, which was basically the same as Xiao Weiman's introduction. Then he said, "Little Qin, I can't do anything about this kind of difficult disease. It's up to you." Chapter 727. Qin Haodong nodded and said to Liao Shuyuan, "Auntie, let me show you." Seeing that her husband and Su Hongba admired the young man in front of her so much, it seemed that the medical sage deserved his reputation. Liao Shuyuan stretched out her left hand and said, "Little Qin, sorry to trouble you." Qin Haodong reached out to feel her pulse and confirmed the position of cervical stenosis and nerve knot. Then he took out the needle bag from his pocket and began to give Liao Shuyuan acupuncture treatment. First, He used silver needles to seal a few acupoints around the affected area of the cervical vertebra to prevent severe pain when the cervical vertebra was expanded. Then he stretched out the index finger of his right hand and pressed on the Dasui acupoint of the cervical vertebra, slowly injecting greenwood genuine qi. According to the plan, he first used his genuine qi to slowly expand the narrow spinal canal. After about 10 minutes, it reached the level of a normal person. Due to the nourishment of the greenwood genuine qi, there were no hidden dangers when the spinal canal expanded. Then, he began to use the Bodhi hand, using his true qi to transform into 2 nimble little hands, and slowly untied the knotted nerves. This kind of operation was already equivalent to a minor surgery. Under the observation of the primordial spirit, he could clearly see the node of the neuron. Like unbuttoning a button, he opened it with the Bodhi hand. After doing all this, he began to nourish the blocked meridians around the cervical vertebra with greenwood genuine qi. Half an hour later, the cervical spondylosis that had troubled Liao Shuyuan for many years was completely cured. Qin Haodong took back the silver needles and said, "The treatment is over." "Auntie, how do you feel now?" "All right, my head doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm not dizzy anymore." Liao Shuyuan felt an unprecedented sense of comfort in her head. It was as if the whole world had become much clearer, and her mind was clearer. Even her thoughts were more active. She stood up from the sofa, spun a few times on the spot, and jumped a few times. If she had done this before, she would have definitely fallen, but now, nothing happened. She felt unprecedentedly relaxed. "Little Qin, your medical skills are really amazing." "Thank you, I really want to thank you," Liao Shuyuan said as tears welled up in her eyes. Although cervical spondylosis was not fatal, it had been bothering her health for years. She had no quality of life at all. Recently, she couldn't even go to work. Xiao Weiman also asked in disbelief, "Little Qin, has your aunt's illness been completely cured? Do you want to do something else?" Qin Haodong said, "You don't need to do anything. Auntie's cervical vertebra is healthier than anyone else's. You just need to pay attention to the computer and mobile phone in the future." Su Hongba praised, "Medical sage is really a medical sage. I can't do anything about this kind of difficult and complicated disease, but you cured it in an instant. I really feel inferior." Yang Haijing then said, "I've been in the medical field for so many years and have seen countless famous doctors, but this is the first time I've seen such magical medical skills. Today, I've learned something new." Xiao Weiman took out a bank card from his pocket and said, "Little Qin, here's 100,000 yuan for your aunt's medical expenses. Don't think it's too little." Qin Haodong said, "Minister Xiao, you're treating me like an outsider. She's my aunt. Why do you still charge me for medical fees? Are you treating me like an outsider?" After entering the house, he admired Minister Xiao and his wife very much. They didn't put on airs at all. In the future, he would need Xiao Weiman's help to develop traditional Chinese medicine. Of course, he wouldn't charge for the treatment. Moreover, 100,000 yuan was nothing to him now. Xiao Weiman could only take back the card when he saw that Qin Haodong really didn't accept it. Liao Shuyuan said, "It's already noon. Don't leave. I'll cook some dishes to thank little Qin. Let's have a drink together." She was originally very good at cooking, but unfortunately, she had been troubled by cervical spondylosis recently and hadn't cooked for a long time. Today, she was well and decided to show off her skills. Qin Haodong didn't stand on ceremony. Yang Haijing naturally wouldn't let go of the opportunity to get closer to Xiao Weiman, so they stayed together. Everyone sat on the sofa and chatted. Qin Haodong said to Su Hongba, "Elder Su, why are you here in the capital?" Su Hongba looked at him meaningfully and said, "I came to the capital because of you." Qin Haodong said in surprise, "What does this have to do with me?" Su Hongba said, "Why not? After you dropped out of the medical college, Su Hui also went through the formalities to quit school. Now she has opened a traditional Chinese medicine clinic in the capital. As a grandfather, how could I be at ease? That's why I came to take a look." Qin Haodong didn't expect Su Hui to come to the capital. Needless to say, she must have followed him here. Yang Haijing heard some clues and said with a smile, Elder Su, I have seen your granddaughter. She can be said to be an outstanding beauty. She is really a good match for Dr. Qin. Su Hongba glared at Qin Haodong and said, my granddaughter is also a proud person. Countless boys pursued her since she was a child, but none of them caught her eye. Now she likes little Qin, but this guy doesn't appreciate it. He didn't even tell Su Hui when he dropped out of school and came to the capital without saying a word. Seeing that he was condemned by the old man, Qin Haodong quickly changed the topic. Elder Su, Su Hui hasn't graduated yet, has she? How did you open a clinic? Su Hongba said, Su Hui has liked traditional Chinese medicine since she was a child. She is very talented. Over the years, she has learned most of my skills. Even if she stayed in school, she wouldn't be able to learn anything, so I didn't stop her from quitting school. Last year, under the joint recommendation of us old guys, she also got the physician's qualification certificate. She couldn't let go of someone in her heart, so she opened a clinic in the capital. Speaking of this, Qin Haodong couldn't continue. He really had a kind of escape from Su Hui, so he didn't say goodbye when he left the capital. He didn't speak, but Su Hongba didn't want to let him go. I met you here today. I'll go back to Shanghai now. I'll leave Su Hui to you. If my precious granddaughter loses a hair, I'll settle the score with you. Qin Haodong wanted to refuse, but he couldn't find any reason. Fortunately, Liao Shuyuan had prepared the dishes at this time. She served a table full of delicious dishes and asked everyone to come to the table. Xiao Weiman was very happy today. He took out a bottle of Wulianya that had been treasured for many years and poured a cup for everyone. After that, they drank heartily and chatted while eating. After 3 rounds of drinking, Xiao Weiman said with emotion, Little Qin, I didn't expect that there would be such a great doctor like you in the decline of traditional Chinese medicine. It's really a blessing for traditional Chinese medicine. Come on, let me propose a toast to you. Yes, Little Qin is really the mainstay of traditional Chinese medicine. With him, I see the hope of traditional Chinese medicine. Su Hongba also raised his glass and toasted Qin Haodong with Yang Haijing. The few of them clinked their glasses and drained the wine in one gulp. Great! Su Hongba put down his glass and said, Traditional Chinese medicine is the treasure left by our ancestors to us, but now it's declining. If traditional Chinese medicine is really finished, we won't be able to face our ancestors after we die. Xiao Weiman said, Mr. Su is right. Traditional Chinese medicine can't die. If there are more traditional Chinese medicine doctors like Little Qin in our country, traditional Chinese medicine will flourish. Su Hongba looked at Qin Haodong and said, It's rare for you to have such skills. You can't hide them. You should teach more students. Yang Haijing said, Dr. Qin, Mr. Su is right. You should go to a university to teach and make more contributions to the development of traditional Chinese medicine. Qin Haodong said with a wry smile, Director Yang, you must be joking. I'm just a little doctor of traditional Chinese medicine who hasn't even gotten a college diploma. Which university will hire me as a teacher? Xiao Weiman said, Education doesn't mean everything. There are many doctors with education in Huaxia, but none of them can reach your level. Yang Haijing said, Yes, with your medical skills, you are qualified to teach experts and national masters, let alone a few college students. Su Hongba said, Boy, tell me directly, are you willing to be a teacher or not? Seeing that the old man was really serious, Qin Haodong said, To tell you the truth, I have a lot of things to do. It's impossible for me to be a full-time teacher, but I can take some time to teach a few classes. Su Hongba said, Well, Zhao Yonggang, the principal of the Imperial Medical College, is my student. I'll call him and ask him to let you be a guest teacher. Qin Haodong thought for a moment. He had completely subdued the 7 great families in the capital. There was not much to do before the alien demons took action, so he nodded and said, Well, as long as the school agrees, I can teach a few classes. Seeing Qin Haodong nod, Su Hongba took out his mobile phone and dialed Zhao Yonggang's number. A few minutes later, he hung up and said to Qin Haodong excitedly, "I've already talked to him and he agreed very quickly. You can go to his place this afternoon." Qin Haodong said worriedly, "Mr. Su, have you told him my situation clearly?" "I've made it clear. Although you don't have a diploma and you haven't graduated from college, your medical skills are absolutely convincing." Zhao Yonggang also said that he values ability, not education. "There happens to be a shortage of teachers there, so you can go. This afternoon?" Qin Haodong looked at the time. It was already 1:00 in the afternoon. He said, "Mr. Su, isn't it a little too urgent?" Su Hongba said, "How can it not be urgent? If you go to one more class, you may cultivate a group of good Chinese medicine practitioners." Qin Haodong said with a wry smile, "Well, I'll go there in a minute." Since Qin Haodong had something to do in the afternoon, they didn't drink much. After finishing a bottle of Wulianya, the meal was finished. Su Hongba was going to go with them, but Qin Haodong refused. He relied on his own ability to teach. If he took Su Hongba with him, it would inevitably give people a feeling that he relied on his connections. Qin Haodong walked into the gate of the Imperial Medical College. He didn't expect that he would come to the Imperial Medical College as soon as he left the Jiangnan Medical College. However, his identity was changed from a student to a teacher. As soon as he walked in, his cell phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and found that it was Alice, the president of the World Medical Association. "President Alice, what can I do for you?" On the other side of the phone, Alice said in a charming voice, "Dear Qin, you recognized my voice at once. Have you been thinking about me?" Qin Haodong was speechless for a while. He thought to himself, is there no such thing as caller ID in China? Or does this beautiful foreign woman deliberately want to get closer to me? He said again, "President Alice, what's the matter?" Alice got to the point and said, "James just called me and said that you use traditional Chinese medicine to cure a patient with pulmonary fibrosis." Qin Haodong said, "Yes." At the same time, he was very confused. He didn't know what the president of the World Medical Association wanted to do. Alice said, "Qin, I've seen the magic of traditional Chinese medicine, but many people in the World Medical Association don't believe in traditional Chinese medicine. I want to organize an investigation group and take them to Huaxia to see your medical skills. What do you think?" Chapter 728. "Okay, no problem. You're very welcome." Qin Haodong agreed without hesitation. It was rare for the World Medical Association to organize a special investigation team to visit a certain country, so he naturally knew the significance of this. Traditional Chinese medicine was weak now. If he could win the approval of the delegation of the World Medical Association this time, the influence of traditional Chinese medicine in the world would inevitably be greatly enhanced, and the degree of recognition of the people would also rise. When the influence of traditional Chinese medicine increased, more patients would naturally come to see traditional Chinese medicine, and a large number of young people would learn traditional Chinese medicine. Therefore, this visit by the World Medical Association was an extremely rare opportunity for traditional Chinese medicine. At the same time, it was also a double-edged sword. If he couldn't win the approval of these arrogant experts, the negative impact would be extremely terrible. Qin Haodong didn't care about this. He was confident that he could definitely conquer the whole world in terms of medical skills. On the other side of the phone, Alice said excitedly, "That's great, Qin. I can see you again. I left in a hurry last time and didn't have the chance to taste the legendary Huaxia food. This time, you must take me to have a good meal." In the end, she even used a Huaxia dialect that she had just learned. "No problem. I'm afraid you won't want to go back to M country if you eat too much." Alice said, "It doesn't matter. Then I'll stay in Huaxia and eat with you for the rest of my life." Qin Haodong didn't know whether the president of the World Medical Association didn't understand the Huaxia language or she said it intentionally. In short, Her words were a little ambiguous. Qin Haodong was still worried about Su Hui just now, so he didn't dare to provoke this foreign woman. He quickly changed the topic and said, President Alice, when will your delegation arrive in Huaxia? We can set off at any time. We're expected to arrive in Huaxia tomorrow. Alice said, but we have a lot of people. You have to find a suitable place. It's best to have a classroom so that you can introduce traditional Chinese medicine and show it to everyone. President Alice, your call is really timely. I just joined the Capital Medical College and will go there to attend classes tomorrow. Then you can bring the delegation to the medical college. Alice said, that's great. It's perfect. Qin Haodong thought for a moment and said, President Alice, after all, I just joined the Capital Medical College. It's not appropriate for me to contact your delegation directly. You'd better contact the school through the Ministry of Health of Huaxia, and then come here for an exchange. That would be better. No problem. I know Chinese people have a lot of rules. I am very familiar with the Ministry of Health of China. I will contact Minister Xiao later. Seeing that Alice knew Xiao Weiman, Qin Haodong didn't say anything more. They chatted for a while and then hung up the phone. After making the call, he walked into the school's office building, found the principal's office, knocked on the door, and walked in. Hello, Headmaster Zhao, I'm Qin Haodong. Principal Zhao Yonggang sat behind his spacious desk and looked at the young man in front of him who was younger than his students. He couldn't help but frown. It seemed that this teacher of his was really muddle-headed. Letting such a young man, who was younger than the students, teach at his own university. If word got out, wouldn't he be laughed at? Oh, it's little Qin. What's the matter? Zhao Yonggang asked with a fake smile. Qin Haodong said, President Zhao, Mr. Su just called you and asked me to report to you. Oh. That's it. Zhao Yonggang said, but his expression was quite cold. Qin Haodong immediately noticed that something was wrong. He asked, President Zhao, is there any inconvenience? Zhao Yonggang said, it's like this, little Qin. You see, there are a lot of teachers in our school recently. Several teachers who have just graduated with doctorates can't arrange courses. It's really not convenient for you to come. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. He didn't come here to find a job, nor for the salary. It was all for the cause of traditional Chinese medicine. He believed that Su Hongba thought the same. If Zhao Yonggang didn't agree before, he wouldn't have any complaints. But this guy was a bit two-faced. First, he promised Su Hongba, and then in the blink of an eye, he used the matter of education to pressure him. This was a little too unkind. You mean there are no vacancies in the school, right? Zhao Yonggang still had a fake smile on his face. Little Qin, I'm really sorry. There are too many people in the school recently. I'll contact you when there are vacancies. President Zhao, you just said that there were vacancies. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come. Little Qin, please understand. Mr. Su was my former teacher. How can I refuse him? Qin Haodong finally understood. It turned out that this old guy didn't want to offend Su Hongba, so he played a trick on him. In that case, I'm leaving. President Zhao doesn't need to contact me in the future, and I won't step into the Imperial Medical College again. After that, Qin Haodong turned around and walked out of the door. In a popular saying, it was the school's loss to reject him. Zhao Yonggang obviously didn't realize this. He said behind him, Little Qin, I'll talk to Mr. Su myself. There's no need to trouble you. Okay. Qin Haodong gently said 2 words and then left the Imperial Medical College. As soon as Xiao Weiman arrived at the office, he received a call from Alice. Hearing that the World Medical Association was coming to Huaxia to investigate traditional Chinese medicine, he happily agreed. After a brief communication between the two, he hung up the phone and called his secretary, Xiao Zhang. Contact the Capital Medical College immediately and tell them that the World Medical Association will come for an investigation tomorrow and specially attend Qin Haodong's course. Ask them to arrange the reception work. Okay, director, I'll inform them now. After that, Xiao Zhang took the notebook and went to the side to make a phone call. He was a college student who had just graduated this year and majored in secretarial affairs. He was very unfamiliar with the medical industry and had never heard of Qin Haodong's name. When he was on the phone, he felt that it was a little impolite to call Qin Haodong's name directly, so he directly changed it to Professor Qin. As soon as Zhao Yonggang saw Qin Haodong off, the phone on his desk rang. He picked up the phone and heard that the World Medical Association was coming to the Imperial Medical College for an investigation. He was immediately overjoyed. The World Medical Association represented the highest level of medicine in the world. It was definitely a glorious thing to be able to come to his school for an investigation. Other schools might not be able to get it. After hanging up the phone, his face was full of joy. It seemed that his luck had come. As long as he seized this opportunity, he would definitely win the favor of the leader of the Ministry of Health. If he did well, he would be able to go further. After the excitement, he also had a trace of doubt in his heart. Old Qin was just an ordinary professor in their school and his teaching level was also ordinary. Why did the World Medical Association want to attend his class? Could it be that he had used his connections? It must be like this. This old man had hidden his identity quite well. It seemed that he had to take care of him in the future. Qin Haodong left the Imperial Medical College and got in the car. He thought of Su Hui that Su Hongba had mentioned. A girl came to the capital for him and struggled here alone. It was really pitiful. It would be inappropriate for him not to go and see her. Thinking of this, he took out his mobile phone, typed in the words, Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine, and then drove forward according to the map. At this time, gangsters with tattoos all over their bodies were blocking the door of the Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine. They blocked the door of the clinic and did not allow anyone to enter. Inside the clinic, Su Hui stood behind the consultation desk with a face full of anger, and a young man in his 30s was sitting opposite her. The young man was tall and fat, and his body was also covered with tattoos. He was wearing a thick and long gold chain around his neck, which was enough to be used to tie up a dog. The guy's face was full of muscles. At this time, he was staring at Su Hui with a lascivious smile, as if he wanted to stare into Su Hui's white and tender skin. The two gangsters, a yellow-haired man and a green-haired man, stood behind him and cheered. Su Hui glared at the man with the big gold chain and shouted, "What do you want?" The man with the big gold chain said with a lascivious smile, "Little girl, didn't I tell you that I'm here to see a doctor? As long as you can cure my illness, I will immediately take my men and leave. If you can't cure my illness, this clinic will be closed." Su Hui said angrily, "But I've already felt your pulse. You're in good health. There's nothing wrong with you." The man with the big gold chain said with a smile, "That's impossible. I used to be famous for having sex 7 times a night, but now I can't even do it once in 7 days. How can it be possible that I'm not sick?" Su Hui said angrily, "I can't treat your illness. I've already called Grandpa. You can wait for my grandpa to come, or you can go to another clinic." "How can I do that?" "You're a doctor, so I'll treat you." Su Hui knew that she had met a hooligan. She said angrily, "I can't treat your illness." "How is that possible? Recently, everyone has said that your medical skills are good and you can cure any illness. I think you don't want to treat my brother well. People say that if you have a headache, you can cure the head, and if you have a foot ache, you can cure the foot. I'm sick here. Why did you touch my wrist? If you want to touch it, you should touch it here and then treat me well." After saying that, the man with the big gold chain pointed at his legs. Then, he burst into wild laughter. The yellow-haired gangster also laughed and said, "That's right. You didn't treat our brother well at all. How can you say that you can't treat him? If you can't use your hands, you can use your mouth. As a doctor, you must be serious. As long as our brother is satisfied, he will come to your business every day in the future." Su Hui was so angry that her pretty face turned pale. She raised her hand and pointed at them, shouting, "Get out of here. If you do this again, I'll call the police." The man with the big gold chain said shamelessly, "Call the police? Sure. I'm here to see a doctor. What can the police do to me?" The green-haired gangster said, "Little girl, I'm telling you, if you offend our brother on this street, you won't be able to open your clinic in the future." The man with the big gold chain chuckled and said, "Little girl, come on. Let me have a good look and check my body. Get out. Get out of here. Get out of here, all of you." Su Hui had just left the campus and had never suffered such grievances. At this time, she was so angry that tears welled up in her eyes and her body began to tremble. "Oh, little girl, why are you so excited? I feel sorry for you." The man with the big gold chain stood up from the chair and said, "Well, since you don't want to check my body, I'll take a step back. I've also learned some medical skills. Let me check your body, you scoundrel, don't come over, or I'll call for help," Su Hui said as she stepped back, but the room was not big. Soon, her back hit the wall and there was no way back. The man with the big gold chain showed his big teeth and said with a lewd smile, "Little girl, call for help." He said with a smile, "Little girl, scream. Scream louder. The more you scream, the more excited I am. On this street, no one dares to ruin my business even if you shout yourself hoarse." Chapter 729. Don't come over. Don't come over. Facing the approaching man, Su Hui became at a loss. Suddenly, she picked up a small flower pot on the windowsill with both hands and smashed it hard on the man's head. With a crash, the flower pot shattered, and dark red blood and mud flowed down from the head of the man with the golden chain. "Ah!" The man screamed and lowered his head to shake off the broken pieces of the flower pot and mud on his head. Su Hui took this opportunity to run out. But the yellow-haired man and the green-haired man had been guarding beside her and immediately blocked her way. The man with the gold chain stood up again and looked at Su Hui with gritted teeth. "Bitch, how dare you hit me? I'll let my brothers take turns with you today." After that, he stretched out his big hairy hand and grabbed at Su Hui's chest with his fangs and claws. At this moment, there was a loud bang at the door. Then the gangsters guarding the door were blown away like fallen leaves swept by a strong wind. At this time, the man with the gold chain gritted his teeth and ignored what was happening at the door. He still reached out to grab Su Hui's chest. But when he grabbed it, he felt as if he had grabbed an iron plate. It was not a woman's chest at all. He looked up and saw that a young man had appeared in front of Su Hui, shielding her tightly behind him. "Get out of here." Qin Haodong secretly rejoiced that he had arrived in time, otherwise Su Hui would have fallen into the hands of this hooligan. He kicked the man's lower abdomen and sent him flying. Then he turned around and said to Su Hui, "How are you? Are you all right?" Seeing that her sweetheart suddenly fell from the sky, Su Hui could no longer hold back the grievance in her heart. She threw herself into Qin Haodong's arms and cried. Before the man with the gold chain came to his senses, he was kicked away. This guy was furious. He had been successful in picking up girls in the past, but today he was beaten like a dog. He got up from the ground and shouted to the gangsters who had gathered behind him, "Brothers, kill him for me." These gangsters were sent flying by Qin Haodong before they figured out what was going on. They were all angry and took out steel one after another. Chop! The knife rushed toward Qin Haodong. "Wait a moment, let me deal with this trash first." Qin Haodong patted Su Hui on the shoulder and asked her to stand behind him. Then he turned around and faced these gangsters. With his skills, these people were not much different from flies. In the blink of an eye, these 7 or 8 hooligans were all knocked to the ground, leaving only the big gold chain. You, don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I'll call for help." The man with the gold chain finally understood that he had met a tough guy today. He looked at Qin Haodong in horror and slowly stepped back. Soon his back hit the wall. The scene at this time was exactly the same as when he had just humiliated Su Hui, but the roles had been reversed. He had become the weak party being bullied. Qin Haodong looked at the big gold chain and smiled. Boy, don't you want to be cured? Didn't you want to have a physical examination? I'm also a doctor, let me treat you. No need, I'm fine. The man with the golden chain curled up his tall body in the corner of the wall and crossed his arms over his chest. He looked like a young girl who had met a pervert. How can you do that? Didn't you come to our clinic to see a doctor? Just now you said that you were impotent. Now I'll cure you completely. As Qin Haodong spoke, he gently tiptoed and kicked the man's legs. Suddenly. Crack! Seeing this scene, the gangsters couldn't help but tremble all over, and the sound of eggs breaking unconsciously rang in their minds. The man with the golden chain suddenly let out a heart-wrenching howl and then covered his crotch with both hands. He jumped more than a meter high, then fell to the ground with a thump, rolling non-stop. Qin Haodong seemed to have done a trivial thing and said with a faint smile, "How good is this? You don't have to worry about impotence in the future. Once and for all, you'll be cured completely." The man with the golden chain howled and shouted to the gangsters next to him, "What the hell are you waiting for? Call my brother-in-law quickly." Many gangsters looked at Qin Haodong in fear and couldn't help clamping their legs. No one dared to touch their mobile phones. Finally, the yellow-haired man boldly ran out of the door, took out his mobile phone and began to make a call. Qin Haodong didn't care about this and didn't stop him. He was very happy to see the man with the golden chain find his backer and solve the problem once and for all. Otherwise, it would affect Su Hui's business in the future. He turned around and helped Su Hui tidy up her messy hair. He helped her sit down in the chair again and then asked softly, "How are you? Did I scare you?" After seeing Qin Haodong, Su Hui's heart immediately calmed down a lot. This man could give her enough sense of security. She nodded and said, "I'm fine." "That's good." Qin Haodong poured another glass of water and put it in front of her. Su Hui hesitated for a moment and said, "Haodong, why don't we call the police?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Don't worry. There's no need to bother the police to deal with these scumbags. He was more useful to deal with these gangsters than the police. After all, the police couldn't stay here all the time." At this moment, there was an ear-piercing sound of brakes outside the door. 4 or 5 off-road vehicles stopped in front of the clinic. Then a young man jumped out of the car and rushed to the clinic aggressively, followed by 7 or 8 bodyguards in black suits. After seeing the young man, Qin Haodong couldn't help sneering. It turned out that the brother-in-law mentioned by the man with the golden chain was also an old acquaintance, Qin Chong, the young master of the Qin family. Qin Chong rushed into the Donghui Clinic of traditional Chinese medicine with his bodyguards. Although he had been pursuing Wei Yanran, as a young master of an aristocratic family, he couldn't stay still. Every night, he would go to the nightclub to have fun. Not long ago, he met a delinquent girl who was very beautiful, and the two of them hooked up. The man with the golden chain was the brother of the delinquent girl. With the support of the young master of the Qin family, he was even more unscrupulous. He ran amok on the street and became a local tyrant. A few days ago, Su Hui opened a clinic here and he happened to meet her. Of course, he wouldn't let go of such a beautiful woman. Today, he came to take Su Hui as his own, which led to the following things. As the young master of the Qin family, Qin Chong certainly wouldn't take ordinary people seriously. He raised his chin and walked into the clinic with a proud face. When he saw the man with the golden chain lying on the ground and dying, he was shocked and asked, "Sangongzi, what the hell happened to you? Have you been castrated?" At this time, an indifferent voice sounded, "You're right. His balls were indeed broken by me." "Who the hell are you? How dare you touch my woman?" Qin Chong was infuriated. Although he had never thought of marrying that delinquent girl, they had a deep friendship after all. This big gold chain was also the person under his protection. Now that his balls were broken by someone, how could he put his face if it was spread out? But when he turned around and saw the handsome face in front of him, he suddenly felt like a big goose being strangled and couldn't say a word. Qin Haodong, why are you here? Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, Young Master Qin, this is my Chinese medicine clinic. I should be asking you. What are you doing here? In order to prevent anyone from coming here to make trouble in the future, he directly said that this clinic was his. Qin Chong couldn't find a suitable excuse for a while. Originally, he had come to seek revenge for the man with the golden chain, but after seeing Qin Haodong, he didn't dare to do so. At this time, the man with the golden chain crawled over, stretched out his hands and hugged Qin Chong's thigh, crying, Brother-in-law, you must help me. You must help me get revenge. It's this gigolo boy who beat me. Hurry up and help me destroy him. Qin Haodong sneered and said, Brother-in-law? It seems that young Master Qin is a relative of this man. No, I don't know him at all. Qin Chong couldn't afford to offend Qin Haodong, so he quickly kicked the man away. The man with the golden chain had just been kicked in the balls, and now he was kicked again. He was suddenly dizzy and screamed, Brother-in-law, did you kick the wrong person? Why did you kick me? Kick that gigolo boy. See? A relative is a relative. It's useless to deny it. Qin Haodong said with a playful face, Young Master Qin, your brother-in-law smashed my Chinese medicine clinic. What do you think I should do? I really don't know him. Although Qin Haodong smiled warmly, this smile made Qin Chong feel very uncertain. He made up his mind to disassociate himself from the man with the golden chain. Qin Haodong didn't pay attention to him at all. He said, Look, my good shop was smashed like this by your men. I have to compensate for some economic and mental damage. How about this, for the sake of our acquaintance, you pay 100 million yuan, and let's call it a day. What? 100 million yuan? Although Qin Chong was the young master of the Qin family, he only had about 100 million yuan in his pocket money. If he lost all of it, how could he go out and indulge in debauchery in the future? Qin Haodong, you're blackmailing me. I don't know him at all. You can do whatever you want to him. You can even beat him to death, but it has nothing to do with me. He just had an ordinary friendship with that girl in bed. It was impossible for him to spend 100 million yuan on such a woman. Hearing this, the man with the golden chain trembled with fear and hurriedly cried, Brother-in-law, you can't do this. You must save me. Seeing this guy calling him brother-in-law, Qin Chong was so angry that he gritted his teeth and kicked him in the mouth again. Suddenly, the man's mouth swelled up and his teeth fell to the ground. Qin Haodong said lightly, Young Master Qin, we're all sensible people. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I just want to ask you whether you pay or not. If you pay, we'll forget about it. If you don't, I'll immediately take my men to the Qin family and smash it. Qin Chong had been in the outside world for many years, but it was the first time that he had met someone who wanted to fight the Qin family. But he didn't think that Qin Haodong was threatening him or joking. With the strength of the Tang sect, it was true that the Qin family could be crushed. If Qin Haodong really destroyed the Qin family because he had slept with a woman outside, Qin Zhan Ao would probably kill him in anger. The result would definitely be no better than the man with the golden chain. In the face of such a powerful threat, he had no choice at all. He gritted his teeth and said, Give me your bank card number. Qin Haodong turned to Su Hui and said, Give me your bank card. Su Hui didn't say much. She took out a bank card and handed it to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong threw it back to Qin Chong. Qin Chong's face was livid, but he didn't dare to hesitate. He took out his mobile phone and began to transfer the money. Soon, Su Hui's mobile phone rang. 100 million yuan had been transferred to her account. Qin Haodong nodded with satisfaction and said to Qin Chong, Take these people and get out of here. Chapter 730. Qin Chong waved his hand behind him, and the bodyguards came over and dragged the big gold chain out of the clinic. After going out, he looked at the wailing big gold chain with disgust and said to the head bodyguard behind him, "Find a place where there is no one, break his limbs, and then throw him into the mountains to feed the wolves." After that, he looked at the clinic behind him with resentment, and then got in the car. First, he shaved his head, then took Wei Yan ran away, and today he was blackmailed for 100 million yuan. At this moment, young Master Qin hated Qin Haodong to death, but he was not strong enough, so he dared not say anything. Although these people were driven away, the clinic had been smashed. Su Hui put up a sign that said it was closed for business. Qin Haodong called Ma Wenjua and asked him to arrange for someone to clean up the place and replace all the broken furniture with new ones. While they were busy, a taxi stopped in front of the door. Su Hongba got out of the car and walked into the clinic. After entering the door, he was delighted to see Qin Haodong. He said happily, "Little Qin, you're here. I told you that you can't forget Hui Hui." Then he said to Su Hui, "Girl, why did you call me here in such a hurry?" At this time, Su Hui had already calmed down. She briefly told him what had happened to the big gold chain just now. After hearing this, Su Hongba immediately scolded, "These damn hooligans, do they still care about the law?" After that, he said to Qin Haodong, "Little Qin, it's all thanks to you this time. Thank you for saving Hui Hui. But in the future, Hui Hui will be alone in the capital. You must take good care of her." Su Hui naturally knew the meaning of this. Her cheeks blushed and she lowered her head shyly. "Well, I'll come here often." Qin Haodong nodded. Although he hadn't figured out how to deal with the relationship between him and Su Hui, he couldn't watch this girl be bullied in the capital. "That's great. You're like a man. Hui Hui doesn't forget you in vain." Su Hongba was very satisfied with Qin Haodong's attitude. Then he asked, "By the way, little Qin, did you go to the medical college today? When are you going to class?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "Mr. Su, I don't think the medical college is suitable for me, so I turned it down." "Turned it down?" Su Hongba's face immediately darkened and he said discontentedly, "You promised me that you would go to the medical college to teach. Why did you change your mind? Do you think the school is too low? If that's the case, I can call Zhao Yonggang again and ask him to raise your salary. A talent like you deserves a higher salary." Su, he took out his cell phone and was about to call. "Elder Su, this really isn't about the treatment. Qin Haodong. And, Qin Haodong." Originally, he didn't want to mention this matter again, but the old man kept staring at him, so he could only tell the truth and tell him what had happened when he went to the capital medical college. After hearing that, Su Hongba's face was full of anger. He slapped the table and shouted, "Zhao Yonggang is playing with me. Let's see how I'll deal with him." Then he stood up and shouted, "Little Qin, come with me to the capital medical college now. I'll see if he dares to refuse you again." Qin Haodong and Su Hui stopped the old man and asked him to sit down again. Then they said, "Mr. Su, I don't think it's necessary to go to this kind of school. It's not in line with my original intention." "You're right. I didn't expect him to become so snobbish after more than 10 years. Su Hongba said angrily, "He doesn't want us to go, so we don't have to go. But you can't be lazy. I'll call Lao one of the Imperial University of Traditional Chinese Medicine now. We have a good relationship. You can go to his class." Su Hongba picked up his cell phone and called Wan Taisong, the principal of the Imperial University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Wan Taisong had been in the field of traditional Chinese medicine for so many years, so he naturally knew Qin Haodong's reputation. When he heard that the medical sage was going to teach in his school, he immediately said happily, "That's great. Thank you for introducing such a good talent to our university. To tell you the truth, our school is short of teachers now and there are very few capable teachers. You're really a timely help." Hearing this, Su Hongba was in a good mood and said, "Then it's a deal." I'll ask little Qin to report to you tomorrow morning. Wan Taisong quickly said, how can I do that? I have to invite the medical sage to teach in our school. Mr. Su, give me Mr. Qin's phone number. I'll go there now. Su Hongba was very satisfied with Wan Taisong's attitude and told him where he was. Half an hour later, a spirited old man walked into the clinic. Wan Taisong was less than 60 years old this year, but he worked day and night as a principal, so he looked older than ordinary people. Mr. Su, you've done our school a great favor this time. Wan Taisong greeted Su Hongba and then turned to look at Qin Haodong. Is this Mr. Medical Sage? Qin Haodong said, Principal Wan, I'm Qin Haodong. Mr. Medical Sage, are you really willing to teach in our school? Wan Taisong had heard a lot of legends about Qin Haodong. He knew that although the man in front of him was dressed in ordinary clothes, he was definitely not short of money. Qin Haodong nodded and said, well, I want to make some contributions to our traditional Chinese medicine. That's great, that's great. Wan Taisong said excitedly, medical sage can teach in our school. It can not only be used as publicity for recruiting students, but also improve the quality of teaching. It's really a great thing. They chatted for a while. After Qin Haodong explained his situation, Wan Taisong said, it doesn't matter. Whenever you have time, you can come and teach these students. If you have something to do, you can do it. In terms of treatment, I'll give you the treatment of a formal teacher. I'll pay you the salary and welfare according to the establishment of a professor. What do you think? From the bottom of his heart, he felt that this treatment was really unfair to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong was the famous medical sage, but as a principal, this was the most authority he had. Qin Haodong shook his head and said, Principal Wan, it's easy to talk about money. You can treat me like an ordinary teacher. I'm not going to your school for money. Also, don't call me medical sage. It sounds awkward. Just call me little Qin. Wan Taisong said, Dr. Qin, you're really noble. Then it's a deal. When do you want to come to our school to teach? Qin Haodong said, tomorrow afternoon. Principal Wan can decide the specific time. Wan Taisong said, well, let's set it at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. Mr. Qin will come to our school on time to teach. After finalizing the specific matters, he did not stay any longer. He turned around and went back to the school. Qin Haodong chatted with Su Hongba and Su Hui for a while. He really couldn't stand the way old man Su looked at his grandson-in-law, so he declined the invitation for dinner and returned to the Tang sect. After returning home, he chatted with his mother for a while and then they walked into the restaurant together. In the past, the restaurant was always very lively. But today, it seemed much quieter. Only Wei Yanran, Zhao Qinggu, Han Jieyu and a few new girls were sitting at the table. Qin Haodong asked, why are there so few people? Where are Feng Wu and the others? Zhao Qinggu said, today, the master of the Yan family brought news. He said that he had something to discuss with Sister Feifei and asked her to go back to the Yan family. Wei Yanran said, Sister Nalan and the others have reached a critical period of cultivation. They are cultivating in seclusion. As they spoke, a look of envy flashed in the eyes of the girls. Although they had also reached the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm, they had just learned martial arts. They could not be compared with Feng Wu and Hu Shaoxian in terms of state of mind and other aspects. Since Qin Haodong had set up the spirit gathering formation, the cultivation speed of the people of the Tang sect had accelerated a lot. In addition, with the supply of elixirs, Hu Shaoxian and the others were getting closer and closer to the saint stage. Today, they had started the final sprint. Well, let's eat first. Qin Haodong asked them to sit at the table and was ready to eat. But at this moment, there was a loud bang outside, and then the whole restaurant shook. Qin Haodong was delighted. It seemed that one of the women was going to break through. He had thought of this when he was setting up the spirit gathering formation. At the same time, he set up a concealing formation to hide the aura of the entire Tang sect, in case someone broke through to the saint stage and caused too much noise. However, the concealing formation could only hide the aura of the outside, but it still caused a very big movement inside the Tang sect. The qi of heaven and earth was unprecedentedly violent. Qin Haodong no longer cared about eating. He flashed out of the restaurant and rushed in the direction of Feng Wu and the other seclusion. A whole row of practice rooms had been built in the backyard of the Tang sect. The rooms here were all reinforced by formations, so they were much stronger than other places. But even so, a room on the left had become dilapidated. The formations that had been set up before had all been washed away by the qi of heaven and earth. It was Feng Wu. It seemed that she was the first girl to break through the bottleneck of the saint stage. Qin Haodong added a few more formations in succession to protect the surrounding buildings. At this moment, there was another loud bang. It was Hu Shaoxian, who was next to Feng Wu. It didn't take long for the violent roar of the qi of heaven and earth in the next few rooms. Nalan Wushuang, Nalan Wuxia, and Qi Wan had also broken through the bottleneck of the saint stage one after another. For a time, the qi of heaven and earth in the Tang sect was like a mad bull, rushing around. Fortunately, Qin Haodong, a strong saint stage expert, suppressed it, so it didn't cause too much damage. It didn't take long for the qi of heaven and earth to gradually calm down. Feng Wu was the first to walk out of the room, followed by Hu Shaoxian, Nalan Wushuang, Nalan Wuxia, and Qi Wan. In such a short time, they had increased by 5 masters at the saint stage. If other families knew about it, what would they think? Fortunately, he had set up the concealing formation before. The inside of the formation was earth-shattering, but the outside of the formation was calm, without any impact on the capital. Haodong, we finally broke through. When the girls saw Qin Haodong, they immediately rushed to him like happy birds. After reaching the saint stage, they were astonishingly fast and surrounded him almost in the blink of an eye. At this moment, there was a loud bang in the city of the capital. Then the wind and clouds changed, and the qi of heaven and earth became violent and restless. These people had just broken through the bottleneck of the saint stage, so they were naturally familiar with what had happened. It seemed that there were also people from other families breaking through the saint stage. Feng Wu looked to the east and said, "It should be the Qin family. It seems that someone from the Qin family has broken through." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "The saint pill I auctioned last time was taken back by Qin Zhan Ao. It seems that one of the 2 elders of the Qin family took the pill." He was right. This kind of abnormal phenomenon did appear in the Qin family. Chapter 731. Feeling the powerful aura emitted by Qin Zhan Ao was ecstatic. The Yen family had Yen Feifei, and his family also had their own saint-level masters. They would not lose to the Yen family at all. Even without Qin Haodong's return, the Qin family had become one of the top families in the capital. They no longer had to obey anyone. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he had decisively bought the saint pill at that time. If other families knew about it, they would definitely regret it. If others knew that the saint pill was really effective, they would never be able to get it, let alone 500 million yuan. He took the other members of the Qin family and stood in front of Qin Zhan's room with joy, waiting for the first elder to come out of seclusion. Qin Chong packed up the big gold chain and then returned to the Qin family with his people in dismay. Before he got home, he felt the difference between heaven and earth. He had heard about the scene of breaking through to the saint level. He realized that his grandfather might be about to break through, so he immediately rushed into the Qin family excitedly. If his grandfather broke through the bottleneck of the saint level, he would be a saint level master. In the future, he and his grandson would no longer be bullied by Qin Haodong. As soon as he rushed to Qin Zhan Ao's side, the surrounding scene changed. The qi of heaven and earth dissipated, and Qin Zhan Ao walked out of the room with a red face. What was different from the past was that his feet were in the air at this moment, about half a meter away from the ground. Flying in the air. This was the typical sign of a saint-level master. Only when one reached the saint level could he skillfully control the chi of heaven and earth. Congratulations on coming out of seclusion, First Elder. Qin Zhan Ao and Qin Zhanfeng greeted him with joy. At the same time, Qin Chong rushed to Qin Zhan's feet crazily, hugged his legs and cried, "Grandpa, you must avenge me. I've been bullied by Qin Haodong. First, he stole my girlfriend, and today, he blackmailed me of 100 million yuan. How could he bully me like this?" Qin Zhan Ao had been holding a grudge against Qin Haodong for shaving his head. At this time, when he heard his grandson crying, his face immediately darkened. "Qin Haodong, you've gone too far. I must teach you a lesson today." After that, he grabbed Qin Chong and flew into the air, rushing in the direction of the Tang sect. "Hey, great elder, don't be in such a hurry to leave." Qin Zhan Ao wanted to stop Qin Zhanlong. Although they now had their own saint, Qin Haodong had Xianyuan Ligay of the Xianyuan Pavilion as his backer. It was better not to provoke him if possible. However, the speed of the saint was too fast. Before he could finish speaking, Qin Zhanlong had disappeared into the night sky with Qin Chong. Qin Chong was taken by Qin Zhanlong to walk in the air. After the initial panic, he felt the whistling wind around him and was overjoyed. Was this the strength of a saint-level strong? With his grandpa's support, he didn't have to be afraid of Qin Haodong anymore. At the same time, the other major families in the capital also sensed the changes in the Qin family. They realized that the Qin family also had a saint-level expert, so they immediately sent their spies to observe. When they learned that Qin Zhanlong had come to the Tang sect to make trouble, they immediately sent people to the Tang sect. But this time, they came secretly. They were not as aboveboard as last time. They just sent people to hide in the dark and observe from a distance. A few minutes later, Qin Zhanlong and his grandson landed in front of the Tang sect. Without Qin Zhanlong's order, Qin Chong immediately rushed to the door and shouted arrogantly, "Qin Haodong, come out. I'm here to settle the score with you." At this time, he put his hands on his hips and was full of momentum. With his grandfather, who was a saint, as his backer, who else in the capital could do anything to him? In the future, Qin Chong would be the top young master in the capital. He could bully whoever he wanted and flirt with whoever he wanted. After he dealt with Qin Haodong, the Wei family would obediently send Wei Yanran to his bed. Qin Haodong returned to the restaurant with the girls. Before he could eat, he heard the shouting at the door. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. It seemed that the grandfather and grandson of the Qin family were really impatient. They had just broken through and came to the Tang sect to make trouble. However, a single saint was far from being able to match up to the Tang sect. "Let's go out and have a look first. We'll eat when we come back." He put down his chopsticks and took Feng Wu, the Nalan sisters and the others to the gate of the Tang sect. Seeing Qin Zhanlong, who was full of momentum, Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Old Master Qin, congratulations on successfully breaking through to the saint realm." Seeing that Qin Haodong ignored him, Qin Chong immediately jumped forward and shouted, "Boy, don't talk nonsense. It's useless to flatter me. It's useless even if you kneel down to my grandfather. Let me tell you, today we must settle the old and new accounts. If you don't satisfy us, we will destroy your Tang sect today." As he spoke, he straightened his chest. The feeling of stepping on others with his strength was really refreshing. Qin Haodong looked at him and said with a sneer, "Then tell me, how do you want to settle the accounts?" Qin Chong took a look at the beautiful Feng Wu and the others and couldn't help swallowing hard. Then he said, "Send Wei Yanran back to me and compensate me with the women behind you. Then kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistake. Then pull out all your hair and compensate me with 1 billion yuan. Then this matter will be over. You have so many requirements." Qin Haodong sneered and said, "Tell me, why?" Qin Chong shouted arrogantly, "Because my grandfather is a saint. In front of a saint, you 9th level supreme power masters are nothing. You are not qualified to negotiate with us at all. Qin Zhanlong did not see Yan Feifei and he felt much more relaxed. Otherwise, the two of them were both at the Saint Realm. Although he was confident that he would not lose, he would not be able to gain much advantage. Now that Yan Feifei was not here, he could destroy the Tang sect in a flash. Last time, he had been beaten by these women and shaved his hair, which had always been regarded as a great shame. Thinking of this, he could not help saying with hatred, Qin Haodong, don't you have many people? If you have the ability, you can beat me again. A playful smile appeared on Qin Haodong's lips. He looked at him and said, that's what you said. Qin Zhanlong said with a proud face, so what if I said it? Qin Haodong said with a smile, then I'll satisfy you. Ha. 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 I'm a saint now. No matter how many people from the Tang sect come, I'll kill them with one slap. Qin Zhanlong had just reached the Saint Realm. He liked the feeling of a cat playing with a mouse, so he was not in a hurry to make a move. Just as he was showing off happily, he suddenly saw a 10-centimeter high heel suddenly appear in front of him and kick him in the face. With a muffled bang, the kick was so hard and heavy that it directly sent Qin Zhanlong flying dozens of meters away. Qin Zhanlong's heart was full of horror. When he reached the Saint Realm, his protective Gang Qi had reached an extremely strong level. Even ordinary swords could not hurt him. But the kick just now had directly penetrated the protective Gang Qi, kicked out two of his teeth, and at the same time, his cheeks were swollen. How is this possible? Before he could come to his senses, a fist as white as jade appeared in front of him again. With a bang, it broke his nose bridge and blood suddenly sprayed out. Qin Zhanlong was furious. The momentum of the Saint Realm burst out, but soon he sadly found that his momentum was useless in front of these women in front of him. He was still beaten like a dog by the intensive punches and kicks. Qin Chong, who was next to him, was completely dumbfounded. He had thought that his grandfather would be able to sweep the Tang sect when he stepped into the threshold of the Saint Realm, but he didn't expect that he would still be beaten badly. What was going on with these women in front of him? Why were they so ruthless? They actually beat his grandfather so hard that he couldn't fight back. Could it be that they were also at the Saint Realm? But that was impossible. Qin Haodong looked at him with a smile. He didn't ask Hu Shaoxian and the others to kill him, but he couldn't let the old man get away with it. Although there was no hair to shave, he could strip off his clothes. For a master of the Saint Realm, it was very easy to strip off his clothes. With the release of internal force several times, Qin Zhanlong's clothes were shaken into pieces and scattered in all directions. In the end, only his underpants were left. Qin Haodong didn't forget Qin Chong next to him. As soon as he waved his hand, Zhang Tiniu and the others rushed up and stripped off his clothes in a few seconds, leaving only his underpants. Okay, come back. Qin Haodong called Hu Shaoxian and the others back. Now Qin Zhanlong was vomiting blood. If they continued to fight, the old man who had just broken through might really die. Grandpa, are you okay? Qin Chong ran over and helped Qin Zhanlong up. He had just broken through to the Saint Realm, but he was beaten like a dog and his clothes were stripped off. Qin Zhanlong felt extremely aggrieved. He opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. Qin Haodong glanced at the two of them and sneered, "Get out of here. If there's a next time, I'll kill you without mercy." At this time, Qin Chong couldn't care about anything else. He carried Qin Zhanlong on his back and ran in the direction of the Qin family naked. After they left, Qin Haodong glanced at the spies hidden in the dark of the major families, smiled coldly, and then returned to the Tang sect with his people. With absolute strength, he was not afraid of what other families would do. Seeing that Saint Qin Zhanlong was beaten by Qin Haodong and vomited blood, these spies immediately rushed back and told their masters the news. After getting the news, the other 6 families were shocked. They didn't know how Qin Haodong and these women did it. Were they also at the Saint Realm? But then these people denied this speculation. If they succeeded in breaking through to the Saint Realm, it would definitely cause a strange phenomenon in heaven and earth. There was no movement in the Tang sect, so it was impossible for anyone to break through. But if they were not saints, how did Wu Shaoxian and the others defeat Qin Zhanlong? After a heated discussion, everyone finally came up with an inference that Qin Zhanlong must have just broken through and his cultivation was unstable. And the Qin family made a sudden attack and defeated them with more people. Or it could be said that these women had some special joint attack skills, so they defeated Qin Zhanlong. In any case, the powerful strength of their side had been completely shown. Even if Yan Feifei didn't make a move, they could still defeat a saint. They definitely couldn't afford to provoke them. The next day, Zhao Yonggang came to school early to work. According to the notice received from the Ministry of Health yesterday, the World Medical Association would visit their school at 10:00 this morning and attend Professor Qin's class. He was very confident about this visit. He had made sufficient preparations yesterday. He believed that today's reception work would definitely satisfy Xiao Weiman, the Deputy Minister, and the World Medical Association. At 9:00, he came to the school gate and saw that the preparation work was ready. The selected male and female students were standing on both sides. The school gate was full of beautiful flower baskets, and the invited professional band was also in place. They were waiting for the arrival of the delegation. Zhao Yonggang nodded with satisfaction. At this time, several other vice presidents and the directors of the school also rushed over. The World Medical Association was coming for an inspection. No one wanted to be left behind in this kind of show. Chapter 732. Director Gowan nodded and said, "Don't worry, President. I've arranged everything. The photographer we hired has won a prize in the city's photography competition." Zhao Yonggang then said to the vice president in charge of publicity, "Have you informed the news department?" The vice president said excitedly, "All the major news media in the capital are in place. The reporters will enter the venue at 9:30. As long as tomorrow, no, this afternoon, the news about our school will be broadcasted." Zhao Yonggang nodded and said to the vice president in charge of education, "The school is the most important thing. Are the teachers and students ready? We can't afford to make any mistakes during the public lecture." "Don't worry, President. There will be no problem. The students selected for the public class are the best students in our college, and the courses are also Professor Qin's best. Moreover, he started practicing yesterday afternoon and has practiced 3 or 4 times now. There will be no mistakes." After asking all the people in charge one by one, Zhao Yonggang breathed a sigh of relief. Now everything was ready, and he just needed to show his face. At 10:00, Xiao Weiman's car appeared in front of everyone on time. Behind him was a bus, which was full of members of the World Medical Association. "Everything is ready. Listen to me." Zhao Yonggang raised his hands excitedly and shouted to the band behind him, "Play." As soon as he gave the order, the band behind him immediately began to play cheerful music. Seeing that the car was parked, Xiao Weiman and Alice got out of the car. He waved to the students next to him again. Nearly 100 beautiful female students in uniform immediately waved the flowers in their hands and shouted, "Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome." Zhao Yonggang seemed to feel that the volume was a little low, so he raised his hand again and motioned for everyone to raise the volume again. Alice was not happy when she saw the scene in front of her. On the contrary, she frowned. She was a pragmatist. Otherwise, she would not have become the president of the World Medical Association at such a young age. Because of this, she was extremely disgusted with this kind of thing. It was meaningless to bluff. If it weren't for Qin's class, she would have had the urge to take him back. Xiao Weiman's face was gloomy. Obviously, he was not satisfied. He had repeatedly told Zhao Yonggang to keep a low profile. Why didn't Zhao Yonggang listen to him? Zhao Yonggang obviously didn't realize this. He walked over excitedly and shook hands with Xiao Weiman and Alice with a flattering face. The teachers and students behind her were extremely surprised to see Alice. They didn't expect that the president of the World Medical Association was such a beautiful woman. After introducing themselves, Alice said to Zhao Yonggang, "Headmaster Zhao, our time is very precious. We don't want to waste it on such boring things. Take us to class quickly." Xiao Weiman also frowned and said, "Yes, hurry up and ask these people to stop." Zhao Yonggang's expression froze. He didn't expect that after spending so much effort, not only did he fail to curry favor, but he also made the leader unhappy. He quickly waved his hand at the band and the welcoming female students, asking them to leave. Then he asked, "President Alice, would you like to visit our school? Let me tell you, our school is definitely a first-class modern campus." He had also done a lot of work on the school's hardware. He was just waiting to show off in front of the inspection team. However, before he could finish speaking, Alice waved her hand impatiently. "Principal Zhao, we're here to listen to the lecture. Forget about the rest." "Oh. Well, let's go to class now." Zhao Yonggang smiled awkwardly and then led the inspection team to the classroom. In the large lecture hall, the seats in the front row had been reserved. After Alice led the members of the delegation to sit down, the reporters and photographers who were constantly moving in and out pressed the camera in their hands with a click sound. Alice frowned. She glanced around the classroom but didn't see Qin Haodong. She asked Zhao Yonggang, "Headmaster Zhao, where's Mr. Qin? Why don't I see him?" Zhao Yonggang said, "President Alice, do you mean Professor Qin? He's already here. He's about to start the class." After that, he raised his hand and pointed to Professor Qin, who was wearing black-rimmed glasses on the podium. Alice looked at the podium again and saw a skinny old man in his 50s or 60s standing there. He was holding a thick lesson plan in his hand and was preparing to give a lecture. Qin Dongliang stood on the podium and still felt like he was in a dream. Although he had been diligent in teaching for so many years, he had never made any achievements. He didn't know why the World Medical Association suddenly wanted to listen to his class this time. Alice suddenly stood up, waved her hand and said, "No, no, no, I'm not talking about him. We're going to listen to Mr. Qin's class, not someone else's." Zhao Yonggang said with a confused face, "President Alice, this is Mr. Qin. There's only one teacher in our school whose surname is Qin." Alice was anxious. "We're talking about Mr. Qin Haodong. We've already made an appointment to come here to listen to his class today." Xiao Weiman also saw that something was wrong. He said to Zhao Yonggang with a cold face, "Headmaster Zhao, what's going on? Didn't Qin Haodong come here to report to you yesterday? He said that he would listen to his class. Why hasn't he come yet?" "Qin Haodong? Cold sweat broke out on Zhao Yonggang's forehead. He had never dreamed that the World Medical Association would want to listen to that young man's class. At the same time, he complained in his heart. He thought that Qin Haodong was really cunning. He didn't tell Deputy Minister Xiao that he was here, nor did he tell him that the World Medical Association wanted to listen to his class. Wasn't he setting him up? Alice said again, "We're going to listen to Mr. Qin's class. Please find him to teach us immediately." Zhao Yonggang swallowed and said, "Minister Xiao, President Alice, there's a little misunderstanding. I thought they were going to listen to Professor Qin's class." Xiao Weiman said, "Well, you're wrong. Hurry up and call Qin Haodong back for class." "Well, Minister Xiao, Mr. Qin came to report to me yesterday. I'm not in a hurry to let him go to work, so I let him rest for a day. I'll call him now and ask him to come here immediately." Alice frowned and said, "That's not what Qin said on the phone yesterday. Hurry up and inform him. Our time is very precious. Please wait a moment. I'll call him now." Zhao Yonggang turned around and walked out of the big classroom. At this time, he was sure that he had been tricked by Qin Haodong. This guy looked ordinary, but he had such great power. Not only did he know Minister Xiao, but he was also familiar with President Alice. It seemed that their relationship was very good. The most hateful thing was that he was familiar with the two big shots. After being driven out, he didn't inform anyone and even asked the World Medical Association to come to his school. It was obvious that he was setting him up. But he couldn't say anything. Who asked him to look down on Qin Haodong? If he had known that Qin Haodong had such great power, he would have asked him to stay even if he had to call his ancestors. He took out his mobile phone. Now he had no choice but to invite Qin Haodong back to their school. Otherwise, he would lose a lot of face today. After breakfast, Qin Haodong went to Su Hui's Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine. After entering the door, he took a look and found that everything had returned to normal. The people Ma Wenjue found were really efficient. They repaired the clinic in one night. After what happened yesterday, the Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine was not affected on this street. On the contrary, it became famous. There was an endless stream of people coming to see Su Hui. At this time, there was already a long line. Seeing that Su Hui was too busy, he also took a table, sat next to Su Hui, and began to treat people. At first, no one came to his side. Later, Su Hui said that he was her teacher, and the patients came to line up here doubtfully. After seeing Qin Haodong's magical medical skills, more and more people came to see a doctor. Qin Haodong's speed was very fast. Basically, he could treat a patient in 1 or 2 minutes. The two of them worked together and soon finished treating dozens of patients in the consulting room. At this moment, Qin Haodong's cell phone rang. He pressed the answer button. Zhao Yonggang said politely on the other side of the phone, "Little Qin, it's me, Zhao Yonggang from the medical college." "Hello, President Zhao. What can I do for you?" As he spoke, Qin Haodong sneered. Just as Zhao Yonggang had guessed, he did not inform Xiao Weiman and Alice on purpose. Since he had broken his promise to Fang Yan and played a trick on him, he did not mind making him suffer a little. "Here's the thing, little Qin. In fact, I was just joking with you yesterday. Mr. Su is my teacher and I am his student. I can be considered your big brother. I was just joking with you yesterday and asked you to rest at home for a day. Now you can come to our school for classes. Don't worry about the treatment. With our relationship, it will definitely not be bad. It will be the same as a formal teacher." Qin Haodong laughed in his heart. At this point, the old fox was still beating around the bush. He said, "President Zhao, I see. But I have something to do now. I will report tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "The inspection team will leave tomorrow. It's useless for you to come here." Zhao Yonggang thought in his heart, but he did not dare to show it. He quickly said, "You can't do it tomorrow. Now the students are waiting for your class. Hurry up and come." "President Zhao, didn't you say yesterday that there are so many teachers in the school that even doctors and professors don't need them all? I don't have an academic degree. How can they wait for me to come to class?" Zhao Yonggang's expression froze, and then he said, "Little Qin, since you are already a staff of our school, you have to listen to my orders and come here quickly. Otherwise, it will be bad if you miss this opportunity." Qin Haodong smiled. At this time, the old guy was still not telling the truth. He lost interest in playing and said directly, "President Zhao, to tell you the truth, I am now a teacher at the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. I will go to class in the afternoon." Hearing this, Zhao Yonggang said eagerly, "Little Qin, you can't do that. I was really joking with you yesterday. What is the treatment offered by the University of Traditional Chinese Medicine? I promise it will be twice as good as theirs. Hurry up and come to report now." Qin Haodong said, "That's enough, President Zhao. You don't have to pretend. As for the World Medical Association, I will call President Alice now and ask her to come to the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine in the afternoon. Little Qin, don't be like this. You can work in both schools at the same time. I will give you the establishment and treatment of a regular teacher and pay you according to the level of a professor." Qin Haodong said, "I'm sorry, I'm not interested in the Capital Medical College anymore." "Hello, "Hello, little Qin, what conditions do you have? Just tell me." "Don't hang up." Zhao Yonggang was talking anxiously when there was a busy tone on the other side of the phone. He hurriedly called again, but the line was already busy. Qin Haodong hung up the phone and called Xiao Weiman again. He explained what had happened yesterday and invited Alice to attend a class at the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine at 2:00 in the afternoon. Chapter 733. Xiao Weiman took the phone and was extremely dissatisfied with Zhao Yonggang's two-faced behavior. He immediately left the Capital Medical College with his men. Looking at the back of the delegation leaving, Zhao Yonggang was so regretful that he banged his head against the wall next to him twice. There was once an opportunity for both fame and fortune in front of him, but he didn't cherish it. Now when he thought of it, he regretted it, but it was useless. In the Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine, the two of them didn't go out for lunch. Su Hui personally cooked 4 dishes. She was good at cooking. Although they were all light vegetables, they tasted very good. At 1:00 in the afternoon, Qin Haodong left the clinic and rushed to the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. More than half an hour later, he strolled into the university gate. Looking at the spacious campus, he couldn't help sighing with emotion. At that time, his dream was to apply for the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, but in the end, he missed it. He didn't expect to come here as a teacher today. As he was walking forward, the cell phone in his pocket rang. It was the principal, Wan Taisong. He pressed the answer button, and Wan Taisong said excitedly, "Little Qin, are you here? Minister Xiao and the members of the delegation have already arrived." Originally, he just wanted to hire a good teacher, but he didn't expect that a great opportunity would come along with it. He would wake up laughing even in his sleep. The World Medical Association had come for an inspection. He was afraid that after today, the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine would not be able to keep a low profile. "President Wan, I've already arrived at our school. I'll come to you right away." After that, he hung up the phone. At this moment, there was a cry of surprise behind him. "Qin Haodong, is that you?" He took the phone and looked back, only to see a man and a woman standing behind him, each holding a mobile phone of the latest model. The man was about 1.7 meters tall, and his appearance was relatively ordinary. However, he was dressed fashionably and looked like a rich man's son. Next to him stood a tall girl, who was about 1.7 meters tall. She had long hair and a beautiful appearance. She could be considered a beautiful girl among ordinary people. Seeing these two people, he immediately recalled countless memories. The man's name was Huang Fusheng, and the woman's name was Gu Xiaoyan. They were both from Wufeng County and used to be his high school classmates. Gu Xiaoyan was his first love. When they were in high school, they had a good impression of each other. They even agreed to be admitted to the Capital Medical College together. In the future, they would be together for a lifetime. But in the 3rd year of high school, Huang Fusheng appeared out of nowhere. He took a fancy to Gu Xiaoyan. Although she was not as good as Qin Haodong in all aspects, his family was rich. After giving her the latest Fruit 4 mobile phone, Gu Xiaoyan fell for him and became Huang Fusheng's girlfriend. Their love, which they had once thought would last forever, was ultimately lost to a Fruit 4G phone. Because of this, Qin Haodong was really depressed for a long time. Because of this, his college entrance examination results were affected. He did not enter the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine and entered the Jiangnan College of Traditional Chinese Medicine. However, Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan entered the Chinese Medicine Academy hand in hand. After so many years, this past event had already been buried in his memories, but the moment he saw the two of them, it resurfaced in his mind. Let bygones be bygones. Qin Haodong didn't care about it. He smiled at them and said, "Hello, my old classmates. I didn't expect to see you here." He was very friendly, but Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan looked indifferent. They didn't show the joy of old classmates reuniting at all. With a sneer on his face, Huang Fusheng looked at Qin Haodong from head to toe. Then, he glanced at the damny mobile phone in his hand and said disdainfully, "Qin Haodong, I didn't expect that after so many years, you are still so miserable. You wear cheap clothes and use a broken domestic mobile phone." Qin Haodong didn't expect that they would talk about this when they met. He was slightly stunned at first, then he said with a smile, "Isn't that good?" "I think it's good. The quality of domestic mobile phones is not bad now. It's very comfortable to use. You're a typical sour grapes. You can't afford a fruit mobile phone, so you say that domestic mobile phones are good." Huang Fusheng shook his head and said, "Okay, I won't talk about this with you. Tell me, what are you doing in our school?" Qin Haodong said, "I'm here to talk to President Wan about something." "To talk to President Wan?" Huang Fusheng burst into laughter and said sarcastically, "I didn't expect that after a few years, you haven't learned much other skills, but you have learned to brag. You're looking for President Wan? Does President Wan know who you are? Even Jiangnan University of Traditional Chinese Medicine has kicked you out. How could President Wan pay attention to you?" It was true that good news didn't go out, but bad news spread thousands of miles. It seemed that the news that he had been expelled from the university had spread here. Qin Haodong said lightly, "Believe it or not, I'm really here to talk to President Wan." "Okay, Qin Haodong, stop pretending." Gu Xiaoyan, who was standing next to him, spoke. Her face was full of disgust. "Qin Haodong, let me tell you, we're completely over, or we haven't started at all. At that time, I was just a little girl who didn't know anything, so I had a good impression of a poor tramp like you. But that's the past. I have a good relationship with Huang Fusheng. We'll get married after graduation. Please don't have any delusions, okay? It's useless even if you come to me." Speaking of this, she seemed to have not vented her hatred. She said, "Not only me, I believe that no woman will like a poor tramp like you who has no money and no career." Qin Haodong was speechless. This woman was really narcissistic. Did she have anything to do with him coming to the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine? "Gu Xiaoyan, you misunderstood me. I'm really not here to talk to you." "Qin Haodong, you still refuse to admit it. You didn't get here that year. What are you doing here now?" After being ridiculed by these two people in succession, Qin Haodong also lost his patience and his face became cold. "You're right. I didn't get in, so I could only come here to be a teacher." "What? You said you came to our school to be a teacher?" A person who is not even qualified to be a student actually said that he wants to be a teacher here. Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan looked surprised, as if they had seen an alien. Qin Haodong confirmed again, "Yes, I came here to report. From today on, I'm a teacher of the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Why don't you go to M country to be the president? Or the Superman who saves the earth?" Huang Fusheng laughed arrogantly as he spoke. His laughter was full of sarcasm and ridicule. "Qin Haodong, I really admire your ability to brag. You dare to say anything." Gu Xiaoyan said with a disgusted face, "Well, I hope you won't bother me again in the future. I don't want to see you." Qin Haodong didn't want to waste too much time with these two self-righteous guys, so he didn't continue to explain. He turned his head and walked in the direction of the principal's office. Looking at his back, Huang Fusheng spat fiercely and said, "What the hell? He has no ability at all. He was even expelled from Jiangnan Medical College. How dare he say that he wants to be a teacher here? He's really bragging." Gu Xiaoyan said, "He couldn't even afford a fruit mobile phone for me. After so many years, he's still like that." Huang Fusheng said, "Don't mention the fruit mobile phone. Look at his clothes. They cost less than a few hundred yuan. I can't afford to lose face if I tell others that he is my classmate." Gu Xiaoyan said, "The most important thing for this kind of person is that he can't see the future. Even the school has expelled him. What can a medical student who hasn't graduated do? Come to our school to be a teacher. Huang Fusheng laughed again, his face full of sarcasm and ridicule. Although he has the same name as the medical sage, he really thinks of himself as the medical sage. He even says that he wants to be a teacher. Others don't know him, but we do. Gu Xiaoyan said, if only he could have 1,000th of the medical sage's ability. How could he be reduced to what he is now, cheating everywhere? Huang Fusheng said proudly, how about it? You made the right choice, didn't you? If you had followed this guy, I don't know what would have happened now. Gu Xiaoyan nodded. Although Huang Fusheng was not good-looking, had a bad temper, and often went out to flirt with women, he had millions of assets after all, and his job after graduation would be stable. Being handsome couldn't make a living. In the end, a woman still needed to find a trustworthy person to rely on. Huang Fusheng held Gu Xiaoyan's slender waist with satisfaction. Let's go. Today is a public class. I heard that the big shots of the World Medical Association are coming to listen to our class. We can't be late. Gu Xiaoyan said, yes, I heard that the school invited a particularly excellent teacher to teach us this time, but it's still a secret. I don't know who this person is. Huang Fusheng said, isn't it obvious? He must be a well-known national expert or professor in Huaxia. Otherwise, how could he show off in front of the World Medical Association? That's right. We can't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's go. After that, the two of them hurried into the teaching building. Qin Haodong walked into the office building. Before he arrived at the door of the principal's office, he saw Wan Taisong coming to greet him from afar. Little Qin, no, now I should call you Mr. Qin. Wan Taisong was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. That guy, Zhao Yonggang, was really stupid. He actually gave away such a talent. Now, he had lost everything. The entire medical community in the imperial capital knew that he had lost a lot of face. He took Qin Haodong's hand and shook it hard. Qin Haodong was his lucky star. Then he said, Minister Xiao and the people of the World Medical Association have arrived. They are in the big classroom now. Do you think we should go there? Qin Haodong nodded and said, well, let's go there now. The two of them walked to the big classroom as they talked. Wan Taisong glanced at Qin Haodong, who was empty-handed. Mr. Qin, today is an open class in front of the World Medical Association. Didn't you prepare any lesson plans? Qin Haodong raised his hand and pointed to his head. He said confidently, President Wan, the lesson plans are all here. In his eyes, the World Medical Association was just a little more famous. In terms of medical skills, they couldn't compare with him at all. Young man, you are bold. No wonder you are the medical sage. Wan Taisong had enough confidence in Qin Haodong. The two of them walked quickly to the classroom. The big classroom of the Capital Medical College could accommodate 200 or 300 people. At this time, 100 students were sitting in the front, and Xiao Weiman, Alice, and the members of the World Medical Association were sitting in the back. A group of students sat in the front and whispered. I heard that the teacher who will give us a class this time is a famous doctor. President Wan personally invited him with a lot of money. That goes without saying. If he is not a famous doctor, how can he show off in front of the World Medical Association and Minister Xiao? I heard that he is a national expert in his 80s. Are you serious? A few days ago, the students of the Capital Medical College laughed at our School of Chinese Medicine for having no future. Are you kidding? The World Medical Association has come to our school for an inspection. How can we have no future? I think they are the ones who have no future. Otherwise, why would the World Medical Association come to our school from their school? This chapter is updated from my book friend, Fat Cat. Chapter 734. When the bell rang, everyone shut their mouths. There was silence in the classroom. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the door of the classroom, looking forward to the new teacher's gorgeous appearance. At this time, a young man in his 20s walked in and walked to the podium. The student in charge of the examination was stunned. He had just counted the number of people. All the students who participated in the open class were in front of him. Who was this person in front of him? Which class was he from? He hurriedly asked, "Student, are you in the wrong class? We are having an open class here. Please go out." Xiao Weiman and Alice at the back of the classroom couldn't help laughing when they saw this scene. Alice said, "Qin is too young. If I hadn't seen his medical skills with my own eyes, would have thought that he was a student." Xiao Weiman said, "President Alice, there is a saying in Huaxia that young people are promising. It refers to a genius like little Qin." Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan were both sitting in the front row. When he saw Qin Haodong, he was stunned at first, and then he shouted, "Qin Haodong, aren't you going too far? How dare you come to our class?" Gu Xiaoyan also said impatiently, "We are in class. We don't have time to fool around with you. Hurry up and get out." Qin Haodong didn't expect to see Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan here. 4 years ago, his grades were not as good as these two people, so he failed to enter the Capital University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. 4 years later, he was standing on the podium, and the two of them were listening to his lecture below. This was fate. At this moment, Wan Taisong hurriedly walked in from outside. Just as he was about to enter the door, his cell phone rang. Although he hung up the phone quickly, it was too late. After entering the door, he said to the audience, "Students, let me introduce you grandly. This is Qin Haodong, Teacher Qin, who was invited by our school. Let's applaud and welcome him." Hearing that this handsome young man was the teacher of their class, everyone was stunned. After a while, they came to their senses and there was sparse applause in the classroom. Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan were stunned. Just now, Qin Haodong said that he was a teacher in the school, which was regarded as a big joke by them. In the blink of an eye, it turned out to be true. He was not only a teacher, but also a teacher in their class. Huang Fusheng couldn't control his emotions. He stood up and shouted, "Headmaster, are you mistaken? I know this person very well. He didn't even graduate from university, how could he be qualified to be our teacher?" Gu Xiaoyan followed and said, "Yes, principal, he is a big liar. You won't be cheated, will you?" Wan Taisong frowned and said discontentedly, "Shut up, all of you. Don't you have any manners? This is Teacher Qin I invited. If you're willing to listen, you can sit here. If not, you can leave." Then he looked at Qin Haodong apologetically and said, "Mr. Qin, the children are not sensible. Please don't mind them." He was afraid that the two ignorant students would anger Qin Haodong and end up like the Capital Medical College. Seeing that the principal was really angry, Huang Fusheng and Gu Xiaoyan did not dare to say anything and sat in their seats obediently. Then, when he heard Wan Taisong say that they were kids, his heart collapsed. They were all classmates, okay? How did he suddenly become an insensible child? Does that mean we can still play together? Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Headmaster Wan, it doesn't matter." Seeing that Qin Haodong really didn't care, Wan Taisong breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Mr. Qin, I'll leave it to you. I'll go to the back and listen to the class." After that, he also stepped to the back and found a seat to sit down. Qin Haodong glanced around the audience and said with a smile, "The two students just now are right. I was indeed their high school classmate, and I didn't get a college diploma." After he said this, the audience was in an uproar. They didn't expect what Huang Fusheng said to be true. How could a student who hadn't graduated from university be qualified to stand on the podium? They should be the same age. Did the principal lose his mind today? Didn't he know that the World Medical Association was listening to the class in the back? Qin Haodong smiled again and said, "Don't worry, everyone. I haven't finished yet. Now let me formally introduce myself. My name is Qin Haodong, and I have a nickname, Medical Sage. I developed the blood revival elixir, the 8 treasures kidney nourishing pill, and the Tangmen Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. I won the cultural exchange meeting between Huaxia and Neon in the south of the Yangtze River, and I defeated the challenge of medical sage of Koryo in Shanghai. Do you think I am qualified to stand here and be your teacher? Although the audience was very chaotic, his voice had a strong penetrating power, so that everyone present could hear it clearly. He knew that it was not the time to keep a low profile. If he didn't convince these students of his age, he wouldn't be able to continue today's class, so he directly announced his true identity. Suddenly, the audience became more chaotic, but the students' emotions changed from shock and confusion to fanaticism. Oh my God, he is medical sage Qin Haodong of Huaxia. He is my idol. Today, I finally see him in person. No wonder the school invited him to be our teacher. He is medical sage. He is more than qualified to be our teacher. It turns out that he is the developer of the blood revival elixir. He can even make this kind of magic medicine. He is qualified to be the teacher of all Huaxia traditional Chinese medicine, let alone our teacher. Huang Fusheng was completely dumbfounded. He had never expected that the classmate he had looked down upon was really the medical sage of Huaxia. They were not just people with the same name, but actually the same person. The emotions on Gu Xiaoyan's face were unpredictable, and she couldn't tell what she was feeling at all. The man she had given up had grown up to be the medical sage of Huaxia, the founder of Tangmen Traditional Chinese Medicine Company, and the developer of the blood revival elixir. What had she done? Had she been kicked in the head by a donkey? How could she give up such an excellent man? It was ridiculous that she had just shouted at him not to pester her, but now she found that she was not worthy of him at all. After giving everyone 2 minutes to digest, Qin Haodong said, "Okay, everyone, be quiet. Now let's start the class. I will be responsible for teaching you the diagnosis of traditional Chinese medicine." The diagnosis of traditional Chinese medicine is completely different from that of Western medicine. It's about looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse. An experienced traditional Chinese medicine practitioner can determine the type and location of a person's disease through his qi. While he was speaking, a foreigner behind him raised his right hand high. Qin Haodong said, "Sir, what's your question?" "Mr. Qin, I'm Rooney, the Vice President of the World Medical Association. I want to ask, can traditional Chinese medicine really determine the cause of a patient's disease without any instruments?" Seeing Rooney stand up, Alice's mouth curled into a smile. This vice president had a lot of prejudice against Chinese medicine. Many people in their team did not believe in Chinese medicine, and this vice president was the one who clamored the most. However, she had not disclosed any information to Qin Haodong before, because she wanted to see how this little man would deal with it. Qin Haodong said, "Traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine are two completely different systems. Traditional Chinese medicine has its own way of diagnosis. It can be said that traditional Chinese medicine itself is a giant machine that can detect all diseases." Rooney shook his head stubbornly. "Mr. Qin, I think you're joking. How can a person be compared with an instrument? It's too unscientific, so I think traditional Chinese medicine practitioners are all deceiving people." Qin Haodong was not angry. He said with a smile, "Mr. Rooney, you don't know traditional Chinese medicine at all, nor have you really known traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. What you said is completely your personal speculation. As for whether traditional Chinese medicine can cure diseases, I can give you a demonstration now. You can point out a person at random, and I will immediately tell you where his disease is." "Mr. Qin, since you said so, I won't stand on ceremony." Rooney sneered. If Qin Haodong was just talking about theories, it would be inappropriate for him to attack him directly. However, if it was about treating diseases in practice, Qin Haodong was asking to be humiliated. Then he raised his hand and pointed to Huang Fusheng, who was sitting in the front row. "Mr. Qin, can you check if he is sick?" This foreigner looked very rough, but in fact, he was very cunning. He had just seen that Huang Fusheng and Qin Haodong were not on good terms, so he pointed at Huang Fusheng first. Qin Haodong said with certainty, "He is sick." Huang Fusheng was sitting there depressed. When he heard Qin Haodong say that he was sick, he immediately jumped up and said, "I'm in good health." "You're sick?" Qin Haodong said, "You're really in good health, but it's a pity that you have an allergic constitution. You ate seafood last night, so you have allergic symptoms today. Your arms and chest are covered with red spots." Huang Fusheng was suddenly speechless. He did eat a lot of seafood last night. This morning, he had allergic symptoms and itched badly. He had just asked Gu Xiaoyan to apply ointment at noon. Seeing that Huang Fusheng did not speak, he guessed that Qin Haodong was probably right, but he still did not believe it. He said to Huang Fusheng, "Student, can you let us have a look?" Under everyone's gaze, Huang Fusheng helplessly took off his clothes and revealed his upper body. Everyone suddenly let out a cry of surprise. They saw that Huang Fusheng's chest and arms were indeed covered with red spots, which were typical allergic symptoms. Rooney was speechless for a moment. It was autumn now, and everyone was wearing long-sleeved shirts. It was impossible for Qin Haodong to see Huang Fusheng's physical condition directly. "What do you think, Mr. Rooney? Do you still think traditional Chinese medicine is a lie?" James was also in the delegation. He immediately said excitedly, "I usually tell you that traditional Chinese medicine is magical and that my teacher is powerful, but you don't believe me. Now you finally see it, right?" Because of traditional Chinese medicine, he often argued with Rooney. Now he was very happy to see Rooney being defeated. At this moment, a black member of the World Medical Association stood up and said, "I'm Bolton from the World Medical Association. Mr. Qin, a case can be accidental. And I think he is your classmate, so you are likely to know his physical condition. This can't be counted." Rooney then said, Yes, I think so too. You must know this student's physical condition very well, so you made this guess." Qin Haodong glanced at the two of them and said, "Mr. Bolton, in that case, I'll tell you about your illness." Bolton laughed and said, "Mr. Qin, you're wrong this time. I'm a member of the World Medical Association. Our medicine is very developed. How can people like us be sick?" The others also showed a look of pity. It was true. What kind of place was the World Medical Association? It was the highest temple of world medicine. The medical skills there were very developed. Bolton had been cured long ago, not to mention that he was not sick. Wan Taisong's heart sank. Bolton was hale and hearty, and he was strong. He did not seem to be sick. Although it was normal for doctors to make one or two misdiagnoses, if Qin Haodong made a wrong diagnosis here, he would definitely be laughed at by the World Medical Association, which would definitely have a great negative impact on traditional Chinese medicine in Huaxia. This chapter was updated by my book friend Alspch. Chapter 735. You're sick indeed. Qin Haodong was not moved at all. He said calmly to Bolton, "You're generally very healthy, but you have a problem. Bad breath, very bad breath." Bolton was embarrassed to be pointed out in public. Fortunately, he was a black man, and his skin color covered his blush. James said, "Teacher, you're right. This guy has bad breath. I have to keep a distance of 2 meters when I talk to him. Otherwise, the smell will kill me." Seeing that the teacher had hit the nail on the black man's secret disease, the students present immediately burst into warm applause. They had been conquered by the reputation of the medical sage before, but now they had witnessed his magical medical skills with their own eyes. Qin Haodong continued, "Both Chinese and Western medicine have their own advantages. Although the World Medical Association's medicine is advanced, your bad breath comes from stomach fire. Western medicine can't find the root of the problem at all, nor can it cure it. So you've been troubled by bad breath all these years. I'm afraid you're still single. Except for serious rhinitis, I believe no woman can accept your smell." James cooperated and said, "Teacher, you're right. Although this guy has made a lot of money, he's still single. I guess he's probably still a virgin." He was very happy now. These people usually slandered traditional Chinese medicine and said that he had been brainwashed by Huaxia people. Although he was angry, he could do nothing about it. Now his teacher finally helped him vent his anger. Mr. Qin, I admit that you didn't misdiagnose me this time. Although Bolton was very embarrassed, he admitted it in public and then sat back in his seat bitterly. As soon as he sat down, another white member of the World Medical Association stood up and said, Mr. Qin, my name is Gulet. Although I've seen your magical medical skills, I still want to verify it. What's wrong with me? The classroom quieted down again. These people of the World Medical Association were very healthy. It was not easy for them to find bad breath. No one was sure whether they could accurately diagnose this man again. Qin Haodong looked calm and full of confidence as he said, your stomach is not good, but the instruments of Western medicine can't find the cause. You're afraid of cold and can't eat cold food at all. According to the standard of Western medicine, you're very healthy, but it's also very painful. This disease is called stomach cold in traditional Chinese medicine. The reason is that you like to eat cold food all year round, causing the cold energy in your body to be too strong. Gulet said excitedly, that's right. Mr. Qin, you're right. Chinese medicine is really amazing. I'm completely convinced. After saying that, he returned to his seat. Seeing that the members of the delegation were conquered by Qin Haodong's medical skills one after another, Rooney felt a little embarrassed. He said, Mr. Qin, since you're so powerful, can you tell me what's wrong with me? Qin Haodong said, you look very healthy now. There's nothing wrong with you except for your obesity. A smile appeared on Rooney's lips. He thought that he had finally found the flaw of this Huaxia man. But before he opened his mouth, Qin Haodong continued, but you suffer from seasonal allergic rhinitis. You are allergic to peach blossoms in March and April every year. You will sneeze and have a runny nose. Although this disease doesn't kill you, it's very painful. Western medicine doesn't have a good way to treat it. When the disease breaks out, it can only be maintained with steroid drugs. This drug has a lot of side effects. Your current obesity has something to do with long-term medication. Mr. Rooney, what do you think? Am I right? Rooney's face turned red. In the end, he gritted his teeth and nodded. You're right. I do have this disease. Now everyone could not calm down. It was not difficult to diagnose the disease when the disease was breaking out. But now it was September, and there was still half a year before the disease broke out. However, Qin Haodong could see his hidden disease at a glance. This kind of magical medical skill could only be regarded as a miracle. Seeing that Qin Haodong's successive accurate diagnoses had completely trampled on the prestige of the World Medical Association, Rooney said unwillingly, Mr. Qin, we are doctors. What we need to do is to help patients relieve their pain. Accurate diagnosis alone is useless. The most important thing is to come up with a treatment method. No problem. Qin Haodong said, although the content of my lecture today is Chinese medicine diagnosis, if Mr. Rooney wants to see how Chinese medicine treats diseases, I can also satisfy you. Rooney said, well, please treat the case that you have just diagnosed. Gulet said, dear Mr. Qin, I have another question. I heard that although Chinese medicine is effective, the treatment period is very long. We need to drink Chinese medicine soup for a long time. You won't make us wait for a long time, will you? Of course not. Qin Haodong said, Chinese medicine is broad and profound, and there are many ways to treat diseases. Taking medicine is only one of them. In addition, there are acupuncture, massage, cupping, diet and many other treatment methods. Then he took out the needle bag from his pocket and said, the diseases I diagnosed today don't need to take medicine at all. They can be solved by acupuncture. At this time, another member of the delegation stood up and said, Mr. Qin, I'm Nedved from the World Medical Association. Although I'm a Western doctor, I'm also very familiar with acupuncture. I've obtained an acupuncture certificate in M country. In my opinion, acupuncture can only be used as an auxiliary treatment to relax the muscles and promote blood circulation. It's impossible to use it to treat diseases. Qin Haodong said, Mr. Nedved, let me give you an example. For example, acupuncture is a very powerful high-explosive grenade, but if you don't know how to detonate it, it can only be used as an iron block or a hammer at most. To put it bluntly, our acupuncture is a hammer in your hands. The acupuncturists in M country don't understand the meaning and essence of acupuncture at all. Only in the hands of our high-level Chinese medicine can it show its real power. His words were sonorous and forceful. Seeing that Chinese medicine could finally hold its head high in front of the World Medical Association, the students present immediately burst into thunderous applause. Seeing that Qin Haodong was so direct, Nedved's face darkened and he said, Well, Mr. Qin, let's see what's the difference between your acupuncture and mine. Who is the grenade and who is the hammer? It seemed that the foreigner was still very unconvinced. Qin Haodong ignored him and stepped in front of Huang Fusheng. Take off your clothes. I can eliminate your allergic symptoms in 5 minutes. Although Huang Fusheng was very unconvinced by Qin Haodong, he knew that it was an open class and it was not the time to be angry. He could only cooperate and take off his clothes, exposing his whole back. Qin Haodong held the needle bag in one hand and took out the needles with the other. He was so fast that before the others could see what was going on, there were already more than a dozen silver needles on Huang Fusheng's back. Nedved was shocked. Although he was also an acupuncturist, it would take him at least 5 minutes to finish the acupuncture on these acupoints. Qin Haodong's speed was so fast that he almost suspected that this Huaxia man was doing it blindly. Didn't he need to distinguish the acupoints? Didn't he need to control the strength? Qin Haodong ignored Nedved's shocked expression at all. He stretched out his hand and flicked the tails of the silver needles one by one. These silver needles were like engines with full horsepower, constantly trembling and continuously injecting greenwood genuine qi into Huang Fusheng's body. My God, how did he do it? It's not scientific at all. After the shock, Nedved took out a silver needle from Qin Haodong's needle bag and pricked it on his Higu acupoint. He thought that the silver needle was specially made, and maybe it was made of high-tech stuff. However, he soon found that there was no difference between the silver needle and the one he used. The difference was not the needle, but the way Qin Haodong used it. As the silver needle was inserted, the red spots on Huang Fusheng's body began to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 5 minutes, they had completely disappeared. Qin Haodong reached out and took all the silver needles back. Oh my God, traditional Chinese medicine is amazing. Just a few needles and the allergic symptoms are gone. How did he do it? It's not scientific at all. Is this medical skill or magic? I can't believe this is real. James cried, You didn't believe me when I told you. Now you see, my teacher is amazing. Traditional Chinese medicine is magical. He spoke with a proud face, as if he was the one who had done the needles. After treating Huang Fusheng, the second patient was Bolton's bad breath. Bolton had taken off his shirt early, revealing his thick chest hair. Although it was not a serious problem, it had troubled him for many years. Until now, he could not even find a woman. However, when he saw the shiny silver needles, he was still a little nervous and said, Mr. Qin, doesn't it hurt to be pierced by such a long silver needle? Do you need some anesthetic? Qin Haodong did not answer him at all. He raised his hand and pierced a silver needle into the Shanzhong acupoint on his chest. When Bolton saw the silver needle in his chest, he could not help but open his mouth in surprise. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not even have felt that there was a silver needle in his body. This technique was really amazing. Oh my God, Mr. Qin, how did you do it? It really doesn't hurt at all. Acupuncture is about the unity of hands, eyes, heart and mind. As long as you can do these things, it won't hurt. Qin Haodong said as he reached out and grabbed the real tail of the silver needle. He lifted it 3 times and pulled it out in just 2 minutes. Well, you can try it. You won't have bad breath anymore. Bolton stretched out his right hand to cover his mouth in disbelief. Then he put it to his nostrils and sniffed it. Then he exclaimed in surprise, "Oh my God, my bad breath is really cured. I can date beautiful women in the future. I finally don't have to be a virgin anymore." Several members of the World Medical Association next to him moved closer. In the past, as long as they were within 2 meters of him, they would smell the bad breath, but now they were within half a meter of him, and there was still no smell. It was completely beyond their understanding that he could cure the bad breath that Western medicine could not cure in 2 minutes. If Bolton was not a member of their team, they would really think that he was hired by Qin Haodong. They all exclaimed, "Mr. Qin, your acupuncture is really amazing." Nedved said with admiration, "Mr. Qin, I apologize to you. In front of your magic acupuncture, I am indeed a hammer." Although he knew a little Huaxia language, he was not very proficient in it. He did not know that hammer had a different meaning in Huaxia. His words immediately made everyone present laugh. Next, it was Gullet's stomach that was cold. This time, Qin Haodong did not even use acupuncture. He stretched out 2 fingers and massaged Gullet's Zhongwan acupoint a few times. The pure green with genuine qi quickly cleared the cold in his stomach. "Well, there is nothing wrong with your stomach now?" Gullet asked doubtfully, "Mr. Qin, you just touched me a few times. Did you cure my disease?" This chapter and the following 3 chapters are added for the readers who supported the monthly votes, such as the snail under the banyan tree. Chapter 736. Qin Haodong glanced down and saw a glass of iced Coke on the desk of a female student. He stepped forward and said, "Can you lend me your Coke?" At this time, the girl looked at Qin Haodong with shining eyes. She would do anything for him without hesitation, let alone a glass of Coke. She immediately put the Coke on Qin Haodong's desk and said, "Mr. Qin, please take it. If it's not enough, I'll buy more for you." No, this is enough." Qin Haodong handed the Coke to Nedved and said, "Well, let the truth speak for itself. Try it." Nedved took the iced Coke and drank it all in one breath. Instead of the usual uncomfortable pain in his stomach, he felt extremely comfortable. He shouted happily, "It's so cool." Then he realized that his stomach was completely cured. He looked at Qin Haodong with gratitude and admiration. "Mr. Qin, thank you. Now I'm completely convinced by traditional Chinese medicine." Qin Haodong turned around and looked at Rooney, the vice president next to him. "Mr. Rooney, do you need me to help you treat your rhinitis?" Rooney hesitated. On the one hand, he also wanted Qin Haodong to help him relieve the pain of allergic rhinitis, but at the same time, he wanted to stick to his position and did not want to give in like this. After a moment of silence, he said, "Mr. Qin, I think the cases you just chose are too easy. If you encounter an extremely difficult disease, you still need our Western medicine to solve it. Well, then let's find a difficult disease and try it." Qin Haodong said to the 100 students under the stage, "Who has a difficult disease, the kind that can't be cured in many places?" There was a moment of silence because no one could tell what kind of disease was difficult. At this moment, a girl in the corner raised her little hand hesitantly. "Teacher, my name is Wang Li. I've been to many big hospitals and seen many well-known experts. I've even gone to M country, but all the doctors couldn't do anything about it." Wang Li's face was pale. Qin Haodong said, "Is it convenient for you to come to the front desk?" "Yes." Wang Li left her seat and walked to the podium. She was a slim girl with long hair and fair skin. But for some reason, she always covered the right side of her face with her hair. Rooney looked at Wang Li and said in surprise, "Student, you look very healthy. Are you sick?" Wang Li hesitated for a moment and gently bit her lips. Then, she lifted the long hair on the right side of her face. From the corner of her eye all the way to her chin, there was a dark green birthmark on the right side of her face. If one were to look at her left cheek alone, she would be a very beautiful woman, but with the black birthmark on her right side, her beauty immediately fell to the bottom of the valley. The reason why Wang Li hesitated was because of this. No girl would want to expose their ugly side to everyone. However, she had seen countless famous doctors for this birthmark, and in the end, none of them could do anything about it. Today, she finally met the medical sage. She didn't want to miss this opportunity. If even Qin Haodong couldn't cure her strange disease, she would spend the rest of her life in darkness. Qin Haodong was not in a hurry to take action. Instead, he said to Rooney, "Rooney, is there any expert in dermatology in your World Medical Association? Please take a look at this classmate of ours and see if this is a difficult-to-treat disease." Of course. Rooney turned around and said to a bearded male doctor behind him, "Kyukok, please come here." Kyukok was a dermatology expert in the World Medical Association. He could be said to be the best dermatologist in the world. He came to the front desk and began to examine Wang Li's cheek carefully. He didn't stop until 5 minutes later. Rooney asked, "How is it? Can you cure this disease?" Kyukok shook his head and said, "This is a very special congenital birthmark. The melanin is not only on the surface of the skin, but also deep into the muscles. There is no way to remove it. Even with skin grafting, the melanin in the deep layer will soon seep out again. It's meaningless. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about this disease." After he said that, Rooney said to Qin Haodong, "Mr. Qin, this is a difficult-to-treat disease. Please do it." The meeting room suddenly fell into silence. Everyone was speechless. So many doctors couldn't cure it, and even the best dermatologist in the World Medical Association couldn't do anything about it. How could this be called a difficult-to-treat disease? It was simply a terminal disease. There was a trace of curiosity on Alice's face. She didn't know what Qin Haodong could do to deal with this strange disease. Wang Li looked at Qin Haodong eagerly with her big eyes. The young man in front of her was her last hope. Because of this birthmark, she felt inferior to everyone she met. Because of this birthmark, she hadn't had a boyfriend yet. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Haodong smiled faintly and said, "No problem, I can cure it." As soon as he said that, the classroom became restless again. Such a difficult skin disease. Can Mr. Qin really cure it? Isn't that nonsense? Mr. Qin is the medical sage of our country. There is no disease that he can't cure. I believe in Mr. Qin. Western medicine can't cure it, but it doesn't mean that Chinese medicine can't cure it. Huang Fusheng looked at his former classmate and felt both familiar and strange. He used to have a sense of superiority in front of Qin Haodong. He had a feeling of superiority in front of Qin Haodong, but now Qin Haodong had become an existence that he could never reach in his life. No matter whether Qin Haodong could cure Wang Li's strange disease or not, his medical skills and achievements were far beyond his reach. Gu Xiaoyan's expression was more complicated. Her eyes kept flickering, and no one knew what she was thinking. Rooney sneered and said, "Mr. Qin, I hope you won't let us down." His opinion was completely different from that of the other students. In his opinion, this young man was completely bragging. Even Kyukok couldn't cure the skin disease, so other people were doomed to fail. Qin Haodong smiled and didn't say much. He asked the student in the front row to bring a basin of water and a clean scalpel. After everything was ready, he began to perform acupuncture on Wang Li. The silver needle first pierced into the acupoint on her neck and slowly moved upwards. Just now, he had clearly seen that the black poison under Wang Li's birthmark had indeed penetrated deep into her muscles, and the area was larger than it looked on the surface. It had already reached the position of her lower jaw. He forced the melanin out little by little through the place where the silver needles were pierced, and finally all of them were squeezed to the black birthmark. As time went by, about 100 silver needles were inserted into Wang Li's head, which was as dense as a hedgehog. At this time, the birthmark on her face was even more terrible. At first it was only dark blue, but now it had become as black as ink, as if it would drip out at any time. Qin Haodong pierced the last silver needle, and at this time, all the toxin of the black birthmark had been forced to her cheek. I'm ready. There is one last step left. Close your eyes, it won't hurt. After that, he picked up the basin with one hand and the small scalpel with the other. He raised his hand and cut Wang Li's cheek with the scalpel. With a puff, a jet of pitch-black liquid spurted out and splashed into the basin, dyeing the water in the basin like ink. Qin Haodong reached out and pressed on Wang Li's cheek a few times to completely expel the black toxin, and finally, red blood flowed out. He handed the basin to the student next to him and asked him to deal with it. Then he took out the gold sore medicine and smeared it on Wang Li's cheek. After doing all this, he took out all the silver needles that were inserted into Wang Li's body and said softly, "Okay, your birthmark has been completely cured." Wang Li slowly opened her eyes. Just now, because the silver needles had sealed her acupoints, she did not feel much pain. Hearing that Qin Haodong had finished the treatment, she took out a small mirror from her pocket and held it in front of her with trembling hands. At this moment, although her face was smeared with the black gold sore medicine, it could still be seen from the exposed skin that the melanin had been completely removed. Her birthmark was gone. Seeing all this, she burst into tears. How many years had it been? This birthmark had given her too much pressure and almost changed her life. Now it was finally completely removed. Okay, don't cry. The wound has not completely healed yet. If you get too excited, it will have a bad effect. After comforting Wang Li, Qin Haodong turned to Rooney and said, "Mr. Rooney, what else do you want to say this time?" Rooney's expression froze. Qin Haodong's treatment was too special. Although the black birthmark had been removed, it was completely unreplicable for Western medicine. No one could use acupuncture to such a superb level. "Mr. Qin, I admit that you cured this birthmark, but I don't think your surgery was perfect." Subconsciously, he attributed everything Qin Haodong had done to the category of surgery. "Mr. Rooney, tell me, what's unsatisfactory about his treatment? You did cure this birthmark, but the way you used the knife was too rough, and the wound was not sutured. In the future, it will definitely leave a terrible scar on this beautiful lady's face. The purpose of treating the birthmark is to make this lady more beautiful, but you left such a long scar, so I say your surgery is not perfect." Hearing this, Wang Li, who had just stopped crying, became nervous again. Although the birthmark was gone, she did not want to leave a terrible scar. Qin Haodong said, "Mr. Rooney, you think too much. I can even cure birthmarks. How could I leave such a big flaw?" After that, he came to Wang Li, reached out his hands and gently pressed her cheeks a few times. Then he reached out his hands and tore off the medicine with the scab on the wound like a sticker. What appeared in front of everyone was a white and flawless face. Not to mention a scar, there was not even a flaw left. At this time, Wang Li was a complete beauty. Seeing Wang Li's delicate face, everyone under the stage could not help but open their mouths and exclaim. Even Alice could not help but exclaim repeatedly, "My God, this is perfect. This is not an operation, this is magic. I'm afraid only God can do it." Looking at the flawless face, Rooney finally closed his mouth. He really could not find any fault. "Mr. Qin, I'm now formally apologizing to you. You've shown me how shallow and ignorant I am. I've made a big mistake in my previous understanding of traditional Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine is a magical medical skill, not a trick or witchcraft." But at this moment, another member of the delegation stood up. He was a bald white man, Robin, the most famous surgeon of the World Medical Association. "Mr. Qin, I admit that traditional Chinese medicine is really magical and it has opened our eyes. But I think it has one biggest flaw, which is that it can't stop bleeding in time in surgery. In the end, we still have to use our Western medicine methods to stop bleeding." 7th update. Chapter 737. After hearing Robin's words, the excited students immediately calmed down. According to their knowledge, traditional Chinese medicine was indeed not as good as Western medicine in hemostasis. If a person's major blood vessels were cut and bleeding, traditional Chinese medicine couldn't help much and could only turn to Western medicine for help. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Haodong smiled faintly and said, "Mr. Robin, your words can only mean that you don't know traditional Chinese medicine. If you find the right way, traditional Chinese medicine can stop bleeding faster and the effect is no less than that of Western medicine." "Impossible, that's absolutely impossible." Robin shook his head and said, "Mr. Qin, don't argue. I know your Chinese medicine. Although the side effects are small, the shortcoming is that it takes effect slowly. The patient will die of excessive blood loss before the medicine stops bleeding." After that, he had a smug look on his face, as if he had seen through Qin Haodong's lie. But this guy did do a lot of homework before he came and he had a certain understanding of traditional Chinese medicine. Qin Haodong said, "If you use traditional Chinese medicine to stop bleeding, it will work. But don't forget another skill of traditional Chinese medicine I just showed you, acupuncture. Acupuncture can not only cure diseases and save lives, but it can also stop bleeding first and then bandage the wound in other ways. It's very effective." Robin said stubbornly, "No. No. No. Although the acupuncture you just showed is excellent, I don't think this small silver needle can stop bleeding." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Since you don't believe me, we can show you on the spot." Wan Taisong stood up and said, "You two, let's not discuss this topic. We are not an outpatient department and there are no bleeding patients here." His original intention was to help Qin Haodong. As the director of the School of Chinese Medicine, he naturally knew a lot about traditional Chinese medicine. He had never heard that acupuncture could stop bleeding. In his opinion, Qin Haodong was just trying to save his face. If he really did it on the spot, he was afraid that he would lose the face he had just earned. In this case, of course, the wisest choice was to stop while he was ahead. However, Qin Haodong obviously didn't intend to do as he said, "President Fan, don't worry. There are ready-made patients here." Then he looked at Robin and said, "If I'm not wrong, you have a cavity in your mouth." Robin said, "Yes, you're right. Mr. Qin, I admit that your diagnosis is very good, but it has nothing to do with traditional Chinese medicine." Qin Haodong said, "Mr. Robin, the gums will bleed a lot during tooth extraction. If I help you pull out this cavity without a drop of blood, can I prove what I said?" Robin was slightly stunned. As a doctor, he naturally knew the pain of tooth extraction and also knew that it would cause a lot of blood. "Robin," he said. "Mr. Robin said. Do you dare to let me try and pull out your decayed tooth?" Robin smiled and said, "Fan, Qin." Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Since Mr. Robin agreed to let me pull your tooth, how about we make a bet?" "Bet? What I gambling? What I do? Bet? What? I say." Robin was indeed a gambler, and he was excited to hear this suggestion. Robin robbing. To say. He. And I down. Robin. Pay. As good. You. Rob. Robin. As the old saying goes, the guest follows the host. "I'll bet as much as you want." Robin said. Robin said, "How can there be no bleeding after a tooth extraction? Even the best dentist in Western medicine can only stop the bleeding after the bleeding." "I'll bet with you. Let's bet $2 million. How about it?" Then he looked at Qin Haodong. He didn't know if Mr. Qin could afford such a big bet. "No problem. I'll bet $2 million. After saying that, Qin Haodong seemed to feel that the bet was a little small. He turned to look at the other members of the delegation and said, "Everyone, who else is interested in making a bet? I'll bet with you however much you want." Rooney said, "I'll bet $5 million. But I'm a little curious. I don't know if Mr. Qin can afford it." At this time, Alice said with a smile, "President Rooney, don't worry. I'll vouch for Qin." If he can't afford it, I'll do it. She had learned a lot about Qin Haodong in the past. She knew that this young man was not as simple as he looked. He was very rich. Since the president has guaranteed it, I'll bet $5 million with Mr. Qin. After Rooney, 3 or 4 members of the delegation stood up one after another. Together with Rooney and Robin, they made a bet of $20 million. After the bet, Qin Haodong began to extract the tooth. Robin asked nervously, "Mr. Qin, what tools are you going to use to extract the tooth?" Qin Haodong stretched out his hands and smiled. "These are my tools." "You're going to extract the tooth with your bare hands?" Robin couldn't believe it and said, "Do you need some anesthetic first?" "No need. It's simple and fast, and it doesn't hurt." Then Qin Haodong took the silver needles and quickly inserted 4 silver needles into the major acupoints on Robin's face. Before Robin realized what was going on, Qin Haodong reached out and flicked the root of the decayed tooth. He stretched out his hand and gently flicked the root of the decayed tooth. With a snap, a small white object bounced out of his mouth and fell to the ground. Everyone looked at the ground and found that it was a tooth that had been eaten by insects. Then Rooney and the others were completely dumbfounded. They had lived for so many years, but they had never seen someone extract a tooth in this way. Generally, Western doctors needed to disinfect, anesthetize, separate the gums, extract the tooth, and stop the bleeding. The whole process would take more than 10 minutes, but Qin Haodong only used a few seconds. It was too fast. The others were also dumbfounded. How was this a tooth extraction? It was obviously a magic trick. Qin Haodong looked at Rooney and said, "President Alice, please come here and be a witness. Check if Mr. Robin's gums are bleeding." Alice stood up and walked in front of Robin to carefully examine his gums. She found that the place where the tooth was just pulled out, although the gums were red, there was not a single drop of blood flowing out. She turned around and said to the crowd, "Although I also think it's amazing and impossible, I can only tell you the truth. Robin's gums didn't bleed at all." Mr. Qin won the bet. His medical skills have created another miracle. After she said that, Rooney and the others still couldn't believe the result. They ran to Robin and checked for a long time. It was not that they didn't believe in Alice's fairness, but it was incredible. Rooney said to Qin Haodong with a shocked face, "Mr. Qin, can you tell me how you did it?" Qin Haodong said indifferently, "President Rooney, stopping bleeding with acupuncture may be amazing for Western doctors, but it's very simple for us. As long as we thoroughly study the 12 meridians of the human body, we can stop bleeding in any part of the body by controlling the acupoints. It's too complicated." Rooney didn't know what the 12 meridians were at all. Although he didn't understand what Qin Haodong was talking about, he still said straightforwardly, "Mr. Qin, although I don't understand the principle of what you said, we did lose the bet. Please give us your account number and we'll transfer the bet to you now." Qin Haodong turned to Wan Taisong and said, "President Wan, do you have a card in your pocket?" Wan Taisong thought that he had forgotten his account number, so he took out his bank card. Qin Haodong gave the card to Rooney and soon $20 million were transferred to his account. He returned the bank card to Wan Taisong and said, "President Wan, I think many of the basic facilities of our school are a little shabby. You can use the money to repair them. It's a gift from me to our school." How can I do that?" Wan Taisong was quite surprised. He didn't expect Qin Haodong to be so generous. He donated $20 million in the blink of an eye, which was more than 100 million yuan. The others present were also quite surprised, including the members of the delegation of the World Medical Association. A doctor who could practice medical skills to a superb level and at the same time treat money as dirt deserved everyone's respect. Qin Haodong said indifferently, "President Wan, there's nothing wrong with it. Just take it. Don't stand on ceremony." The School of Chinese Medicine had indeed been short of funds in recent years. Wan Taisong had been worried about this matter recently. The money donated by Qin Haodong was completely a timely help. He stood up and bowed deeply to Qin Haodong. Mr. Chin, on behalf of the 3,000 teachers and students of the school, I thank you. There was no agreement, but the 100 students present also stood up neatly and bowed to Chin Haodong together. Mr. Chin, we thank you. Although it was less than a class, Chin Haodong had conquered every student present through his medical skills and character. Seeing this scene, all the members of the delegation couldn't help applauding and looking at Chin Haodong with admiration. At this moment, a middle-aged man in his 40s appeared in front of the classroom door. He knocked on the door and said, Excuse me, is President Rooney here? The middle-aged man didn't know what was wrong with him. He hiccuped as he spoke. Rooney's face lit up and he hurriedly said, Mr. Zhang, I'm here. Please come over here. Although he now admired Chin Haodong very much, although he had already recognized Chin Haodong's medical skills, although he had just been convinced of his defeat, he still felt that it was necessary to do something for the face of the World Medical Association and Western medicine. The middle-aged man who came to the door was the one he had prepared before. Now he came at the right time. When he came to Rooney, the middle-aged man said with a smile, President Rooney, I didn't expect you to come to Huaxia. That's great. Otherwise, I would like to go to M country. Rooney took the middle-aged man's hand and said to everyone present, let me introduce him to you. This is my patient, Mr. Zhang. 2 years ago, he had a very strange disease and I cured him. Then he said to the middle-aged man, Mr. Zhang, please tell us about your condition. Chin Haodong smiled and immediately understood that this middle-aged man was Rooney's preparation in advance. His purpose was to show the medical skills of the World Medical Association in the School of Chinese Medicine. As expected, the middle-aged man said, 3 years ago, I had a strange disease. I kept hiccuping and I couldn't stop. During this period, I went to many famous hospitals and visited many experts and professors. I did countless examinations, but no one could find the cause of my disease. Later, I went to the World Medical Association. The advanced instruments there still couldn't find the cause of my disease. However, Mr. Rooney received me and developed a medicine for me according to my condition. After I took it, my disease was relieved. But after I stopped taking the medicine for a year, my disease relapsed again, so I would like to ask President Rooney to treat me. The 8th update. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.